Chapter 3150. If you don't crawl forward, when the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm shifts to your side, you'll be sliced into tiny pieces. You won't be able to repair it. This gentle voice actually sounded a little familiar. However, Mu Rochuan was in so much pain that she was about to explode. How could she recognize who was speaking? Moreover, although that charming voice had a hint of gentleness, the coldness in her bones couldn't be suppressed. Mu Rochuan felt cold all over, and her entire body was trembling. Her gaze followed the shattered space, and her pupils suddenly constricted. When the Sun-Moon Mystic Realm shifts to her side, would it tear her apart? Do you need my help? That gentle voice sounded again. Now I'll give you a chance to choose. Die. Or submit. I will let you have a body of absolute strength. You will no longer fear anyone in this world. Everyone will become tiny ants in your eyes. Strength, speed, and super powerful special ability. It's waving at you. Miss Mu, do you accept it or not? Have you thought it through? A slender jade-like hand appeared in Mu Rochuan's eyes. In the palm of the hand was a small scarlet pill. It looked a little like a cinnabar pill. Her body trembled as she tried her best to crawl forward and crawl. Suddenly, she reached out and snatched the cinnabar pill from the hand. Mu Rochuan steeled her heart and put the pill into her mouth and chewed vigorously. What a good child. In the future, you will be very glad that you made the right choice today. That large hand gently patted Mu Rochuan's head. Mu Rochuan's eyes became slightly moist. She tried hard to raise her head and look at the person in front of her. However, a wave of dizziness attacked her, and she couldn't see anything clearly. Before she fell, the corner of her lips curled up into a cold arc arbor. You and I will fight to the death. The students of the Hong Family Academy finally woke up from their stupefied state. He quickly climbed out of the hole and bowed to Arbor to express his gratitude. The reason why he was able to keep his life was all thanks to the help of these nobles. Otherwise, he would have already become the monster's food. Thinking of this, the student from the Hong Family Academy couldn't help but shiver. My name is Huang Sheng. The student cupped his hands towards them. Thank you for your help. This mystic realm was too strange. It was so cold just now, but now it's really hot. The main reason why he was almost ambushed by the corpse puppet earlier was that his hands and feet were frozen to the point that they were not very nimble. However, he was reluctant to use his spiritual power to relax his muscles and promote blood circulation. So he almost encountered great danger. Jojo was so hot that he wanted to take off his jacket. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal curled his lips and waved his hand. A banana umbrella held up by the wood spirits covered her head. The student from the Hong Family Academy raised his hand to wipe the beads of sweat that trickled down his forehead. He hurriedly undid his collar and took off his outer robe, but he still felt unbearably hot. Emolien reached out and snatched his little wife away. Chapter 3151. That banana leaf then moved above his and Jojo's heads. Let's go. Let's walk around while it's still daylight, Duanyu said. He had only taken a step when he couldn't resist turning back to glance at Arbor. Jojo, did you notice that you seem to have grown a bit? Lady Jojo looked down at her hands, and her eyes brightened. That's right, her sleeves and pant legs had shrunk, so they were indeed a bit bigger. Quickly let Lady Jojo down. The little fellow quickly wriggled her small body, and had Prince Imo put her down on the ground. She excitedly ran 2 laps around the field, and her small face was flushed red as she ran to them with a head full of sweat. Are you a bit bigger? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal coughed lightly, and brushed away a strand of hair in front of his eyes, turning his face to the side in passing. Duanyu, Emolien. No. Lady Jojo's small face that faintly revealed excitement instantly drooped. She expressionlessly glanced at them, before turning to walk forward with her small paws behind her back. Let's go. The trio. Why was this little fellow so funny? Did she think that her small arms and legs would grow longer, just by running a few laps around the field? Didn't that have to wait for that talisman's effect to wear off first? Jojo, your current appearance is about the same as when you were 7 years old. Emolien nodded and said with a smile, That's true. Lady Qiao Qiao continued to walk forward without any expression on her face. She could hear the 3 of them talking behind her. The main reason was that the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal asked curiously, "Jojo looked like this when she was 7 years old? So skinny? What do you know? She was even skinnier back then than now. She was as pitiful as a little bean sprout. She didn't weigh anything when I carried her. I met Jojo in her village. What about you?" Duanyu suddenly asked. "I was also in her village." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal instantly asked curiously, "What village is that? You two were both in her village back then? Oh right, how did you two meet her?" Why should I tell you? When I saw Jojo, she was hiding behind a tree and watching me. Who likes to look at you when you're so shameless? Prince Emo grumpily rebuked Duanyu. "The first time I met Jojo, she was killing people by a stinky ditch." Both of them were shocked and turned to look at Emo Lien. When did this happen? Although Jojo was leading the way with his 2 claws behind his back, his ears were perked up as he listened to their chatter at this moment. He finally couldn't take it anymore and turned back to roar. "Let's go!" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal couldn't help but chuckle. "Who did you kill beside the smelly ditch? Tell me." Since he had nothing to do, he might as well chat. Xiaomu grumpily glared at them. "What stinky ditch? That's a man-made canal in the village. Besides, when did she kill anyone? Didn't she know when to stop?" Speaking of the past, she suddenly felt that the days really passed by quickly. Arbor ran a dozen steps forward when she suddenly heard a small noise from her bones. Her mind jolted, and she quickly ducked behind a tree to hide, using the tree to quickly hide in Paradise Planet. Before the spirit domain's power could disperse, it was sealed by Emo Lien and the other two's powers, who had rushed over in time. Once Arbor entered Paradise Planet, she swiftly sprinted back to her treehouse. Her petite body had just leaped into the treehouse when it rapidly transformed. Chapter 3152. She didn't even have time to take off her little clothes before they burst open and turned into strips of rags that hung on her body. Sir Jojo looked down at her familiar body. With a stoic expression, she took out a red combat suit from her inner world and draped it over herself. It was time to show off her skills. She had enough of this petite body. When she swayed out from behind the tree again, the little stoic was already dressed in a bright red combat suit, which was exceptionally eye-catching. Her fine black hair was loosely gathered, and she stood tall and slender, looking peerlessly beautiful. When she walked out from behind the tree, Emo Lien and the others were startled when they looked over. As though they didn't expect this little stoic to recover in a matter of minutes, Emo Lien blinked in amazement. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal drifted to the little stoic's front and said with a bewitching smile, "Ah, my lord Xiao Xiao, is your outfit the same as mine? Look, we look so compatible in the same outfit." Scram! Emo Lien hastily flew to his wifey's side and swung her fist at the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal without any explanation. "Compatible my ass. Go change back to your previous pink clothes." "No." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal shook his head resolutely. "I like to wear red now, the same red as my Sir Jojo's." What should she do when her hands itched to beat someone up? Emo Lien moved her fingers. When she looked back, she saw that student from the Hong Estate Academy, called Huang Sheng, walking over. "Miss Chiao Yu, what's wrong?" When he realized that asking Miss Chiao this question might cause her displeasure, Huang Sheng scratched his head embarrassedly and said, "Apologies, I was just curious and asked out of turn." Arbor glanced at him, and naturally couldn't be bothered to explain. "Jojo, are you hot?" Duanyu twitched his mouth and asked. It was such a hot day, yet Jojo had wrapped herself in 2 layers, and was even wearing a red combat suit that shone like the sun. She looked very hot just by looking at it. Sir Jojo glanced at them expressionlessly, and then took out 4 water spirit talismans from her pocket, and gave them to them. "Use them to lower your temperature. I have 4 pasted in my clothes." Right now he didn't feel hot. In fact, there were too many people pasted on him. The cold air was whooshing, and he felt quite cold. Everyone was speechless. This is a water talisman." Huang Sheng took a water spirit talisman that was glowing with a purple light. He looked at it, but he couldn't tell what grade it was. However, he had a feeling that this purple water spirit talisman was definitely of an extraordinary level. "But Miss Chiao, this nouveau riche, took 4 water spirit talismans and stuck them in her clothes as cooling devices. Stick it on and let it melt into ice. It's quite comfortable to stick it on your back. Huang Sheng's hands trembled slightly. He felt that it was a waste to use the water spirit talisman just like that. But Jojo was looking at him. He could only use his trembling spirit energy to activate the talisman. Enduring the pain in his heart, he stuck the water spirit talisman on his back. Wasn't the water spirit talisman used to attack people? Since when did it have a cooling effect? It was too wasteful. Huang Sheng silently wept. Sure enough, after the water spirit talisman was stuck on his back, he felt cool air whooshing out of his body. He instantly felt better under the scorching sun. And his mind also cleared up. Jojo, you're so smart. It was rare that someone was still praising that prodigal girl at this time. Arbor took out another stack of water spirit talismans from his pocket and handed them to Emolien, Duanyu, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Chapter 3153. This talisman can maintain its effects for about 2 hours. Once it's used up, we'll switch to another one. The 3 of them nodded repeatedly. Sure enough, after using the water spirit talisman to cool down, they didn't feel that suffocating heat when they walked. Now that they didn't need to expend their spiritual energy to block out the surrounding heat waves, they were all relaxed and quickened their pace toward the depths of the mystic realm. I wonder where Xian and the others were transferred to, Arbor said with a frown. As Huang Sheng followed them, he felt a sense of security. He was very grateful to them and hurriedly asked, Miss Qiao, are you talking about your companions? Previously, I did meet Miss Qi and that fatty brother in front of a large hall. However, we were attacked by a large group of zombies not long after, and we were separated as we fought. Those corpse puppets are chasing after us like crazy. They even split up a few of our teammates who were originally gathered together. I was chased in this direction by them, and in the end, I was the only one fighting, Huang Sheng said. I suspect that someone is overseeing and commanding those zombies. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to formulate a strategy of separating and attacking us one by one. Arbor nodded. You said you met Xian at the entrance of a large hall? Huang Sheng quickly nodded. It's just that we've shifted time and space, so I don't remember the exact location of that large hall. As he said this, he scratched his head in embarrassment and looked apologetically at Arbor. Arbor nodded. Xian and the others are very clever and have many defensive items. They are also quite strong, so it shouldn't be a problem for them to deal with 2 or 3 zombies. We just have to find them as soon as possible. Since Huang Sheng said he met Xian and the others in front of some large hall, then they would set this large hall as their target first and talk after finding it. Jojo, there are people coming up ahead, Duanyu suddenly said. Arbor knew that their divine senses were above hers. Since Duanyu said there were people coming, then there were quite a few of them. The 4 of them tacitly moved to the side, leaving a path in the middle. Dust billowed as Zhongli Jiwei, and a few people ran in front like dogs. Behind them, there were 20 to 30 crooked corpse puppets with broken limbs chasing after them. A strange light flashed in Arbor's eyes, and his fingers moved slightly. Emolien couldn't help but laugh in his heart. He secretly glanced at his little wife, and the corners of his mouth raised into a smile. Could this little guy be? You must be missing the days when you were chased by these ugly things. There were sparks of excitement in her sparkling big eyes. Ahem, the violent side of his wife's heart was stirring again. Roar! A corpse puppet with a missing arm suddenly roared. All the corpse puppets instantly sped up and pounced on Bashu, who was at the end of the line. Bashu turned around and saw the corpse hag opening its huge mouth and biting towards the back of his head. Without another word, he picked up a worn-out shoe and slammed it on the corpse puppet's ugly face. As he ran and jumped, he also pulled off the worn-out shoe on his other foot and threw it behind him. Then, he quickly jumped up and arrived behind Zhongli Jiwei in a few jumps. Chapter 3154. Roar, roar, roar. Several zombies twisted their bodies and angrily glared at the person at the back of the group with their ghastly white eyes. Commandery Princess Xiangchang's heart was about to leap out of her chest. When she looked up, She just happened to see Duanyu standing by the roadside. She immediately shrieked excitedly as if she had seen her biological father. "Ali, Ali, save me! Ali!" Right now, she had taken several speed-increasing pills in succession to barely keep up with the group's movements. If she was really left behind by the group, she would undoubtedly become a tool for the zombies and be heartlessly abandoned by this group. At this time, Bashu also saw our dear Duanyu standing by the roadside. He hastily wailed, "Your Highness Prince Chen, save me!" It was unknown how much strength Commandery Princess Xiangchang exerted, but she erupted with unprecedented potential. She ran past Zhongli Jiwei while panting, wanting to pounce into Duanyu's arms all of a sudden. "Big brother Ali!" Commandery Princess Xiangchang's sobbing voice was still lingering in the air when she suddenly felt her body lighten. Someone had actually sent her flying with a kick. Duanyu, who originally wanted to dodge, silently stood on the spot, the corner of his mouth twitching imperceptibly. However, the little stoic shot over like a cannonball. With a sweep of her small hand, a long saber wrapped in flames appeared in her small hand. She stood far away from the group of zombies and brandished the long saber in her hand. She could chop off a zombie's head with each swing of the saber and conveniently store the crystal cores that flew out from the heads into her storage talisman. After this, Zhongli Jiwei and everyone else's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. This little stoic simply didn't care about their lives. She purely wanted to find these zombies to fight, so she simply didn't care if those zombies were chasing other people. She picked a few of them herself and just fought with the zombies there. She even switched out several weapons in succession, as if she was opening a weapons shop, trying out all kinds of weapons. It seemed like today was the day he had to try out a weapon that was suitable for killing zombies. Bashu dodged left and right to avoid several zombies that pounced at him. Then, he rolled his eyes and cunningly hid behind Duanyu, Emolian and the others. He kept yelling, "Your Highness Prince Chun, this subordinate is about to be beaten to death by these zombies. Please lend us a hand." Duanyu swept that person a disdainful glance. He was a level 12 great spiritual cultivator, yet he was being chased like a dog by a few mere zombies. Truly shameful. It wasn't that Ba Shu couldn't defeat those corpse puppets, but that this kid was too selfish. He was absolutely unwilling to spend any more effort than the others. He would rather hide in the group and watch the entire group being chased by the zombies. Consume spiritual energy to help this team destroy the corpse puppets? Why? His spiritual energy wasn't picked up for free. If it was all used up, it would be difficult for him to fully recover it. Bashu always felt that it was better to preserve his strength than to reveal all his cards at once. Quickly look, what is that? At this time, a student from the Hong Clan Academy in the group suddenly yelled in a trembling voice, Old Pa, Old Pa." Huang Sheng hastily called out when he saw his companion. "Old Pa, quickly come over, Old Pa." That student called Old Pa had a middle-aged appearance and didn't look young anymore. Who knew how many years he had wasted in the academy, but he still couldn't graduate. Chapter 3155. Old Pa looked in Huang Sheng's direction with a slightly happy expression. "Huang Sheng, are you alright?" "I'm fine. Come here, Old Pa." Huang Sheng anxiously waved at his companions. What's that? Look! Flying corpse puppets?" When Zhongli Jiwei heard the hasty cries, her expression couldn't help but change slightly. She subconsciously raised her head to look, and sure enough, she saw a dark mass of flapping corpse puppets sweeping towards them. "Xiao Qiao," Emolian called out in an urgent voice. Arbor quickly left the battlefield and returned to their side. He silently pulled out a purple talisman from his sleeve. "Try it." Emolian curled her lips. "I don't think these things are afraid of fire." This group of flying corpse puppets made them feel a bit of fire spiritual energy flowing through their bodies. It seemed like this group of corpse puppets had been collectively improved. "It's fine. I have to test it to know if it's useful or not," Arbor said indifferently. He then flicked his finger, and the talisman flew into the sky with the force of a thunderbolt. In an instant, the entire sky was covered by a purple light. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and a bolt of lightning crashed into the group of flying corpse puppets. A flying corpse puppet that was flying in the air was blown to smithereens. Emolien and the others were all shocked. When they looked up again, they saw that the purple talisman was already surging with waves of lightning spiritual energy. So it wasn't an explosion talisman. It was a multi-layered lightning explosion talisman. A lightning explosion talisman contained at least 4 layers of lightning explosion power. Thus, when this round of inhumane lightning struck down, everyone only saw the flying corpse puppets being bombarded and falling from the sky one by one. Everyone was a bit dumbstruck. Bashu was shocked, and he was a bit more afraid of the little girl's methods. He jealously looked at the lightning explosion talisman floating in the air, with a leisurely purple light. He couldn't help but clamor in his heart. Damn it, people with status and identity are so rich that they can casually throw out a 5-spirit talisman. The talisman in front of him looked much more powerful than a pure thunder spirit talisman. It was obvious that it was not an ordinary item. Thinking about how he had drifted about in the stormy Jianghu for so long, he didn't even have a good talisman. It really made him feel unhappy. At this time, Zhongli Jiwei had also crawled up from the ground in a flustered and exasperated manner. She pointed at Xiao Mu and stammered "you" for a long time. Her lips were trembling from anger, and she was simply unable to utter a coherent sentence. This woman before just picked these corpse puppets and beat them up as if it was child's play. She didn't have any consciousness of saving people at all. Roar! A fierce roar came from the sky. Xiao Mu looked up and saw a mutated giant zombie with 4 wings abruptly swooping down from midair. It was like a rapidly descending ball of light, before abruptly exploding in front of her eyes. Emolien didn't say anything, and took a step forward first. The slender dark moon came out from her wrist, and stabbed toward the corpse hag's left eye without saying anything. Clang! When the dark moon cut the corpse hag's left eye, the sound of metal colliding rang out. Sir Jojo's heart jumped fiercely, and he couldn't help but shout, "Be careful of this mutated corpse hag. It's already trained to have a head of copper and an arm of iron." Roar! The 4-winged mutated corpse hag's eyes flashed with a fierce light, and it suddenly reached out to grab Emolien's arm. Chapter 3156. Arbor's mood rose and fell as he watched the zombie emitting a vicious glint pounce at Emolien and viciously swipe its claws. Clang! The zombie's claws were blocked by Emolien's godly armor, as if they had brushed past an iron plate. Roar! That mutated zombie roared angrily at Emolien, as if he had provoked a deep-seated rage. His eyes, which had turned white, stared at him coldly. Emolien sneered, and a small cluster of black flames floated out of his fingertip. It didn't flicker very violently, but it was very dazzling. That mutated zombie clearly had intelligence. The instant it saw the black flames, it shuddered and subconsciously shuddered. Emolien crooked his slender finger at it, and that mutated zombie's eyes rolled back and forth, following the black flames on his hand. Unexpectedly, it was struck in the head by a 10-inch-long bone-piercing nail. That guy roared and turned his head around madly. Emolien curled his lips, and the black flames in his hand transformed into a black arrow as he teleported. It sank into the zombie's head with a whoosh. Roar, roar! This time, that zombie was truly unlucky. It was suffering from the fact that it couldn't speak. In reality, its head was exploding happily like fireworks. Shut up! Duan Yu floated in the air and plunged his sword deep into the zombie's head. The mutated zombie crawled with its claws, wanting to slap Duan Yu away. Unexpectedly, when it moved, it discovered that its limbs had been bound by several hundred vines at some point in time. Prince Emo sneered on the inside. Who would fight a disgusting fellow like you one-on-one? Of course it was a group fight and a quick fight. Upon seeing this, Sir Jojo hastily said, "Just beat it until it's crippled, don't kill it. Tie it up, and make it into a small base for research." He wondered if the drug in this mutated zombie's body was any different from that of Sister Qijing. Arbor felt that he could study this point and find out some patterns of the zombie's mutation. When Emolien and the other two heard this, they naturally nodded. They would beat him up without caring about anything else first. That mutated zombie puppet was also quite unlucky. Its head had been struck by the black fire and Duan Yu's sword strike, so it was currently in a daze and couldn't even tell north from south. The three bastards did not care about its condition. After a violent beating, the unlucky zombie was on the verge of death. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal had tied the corpse up tightly with wooden vines. 2 of its wings had been chopped off. Now the corpse puppet was lying on the ground, looking extremely miserable. Sure enough, no matter how ferocious this thing was, it could only be beaten up by 3 perverts. Arbor expressionlessly put it into a storage talisman and asked worriedly, "It won't break out of the storage talisman, will it?" "How dare it?" Emolian snorted. "It's already on the verge of death. Jojo, don't worry, it won't be able to get up." Arbor thought about it and agreed. After being beaten up by these 3 people, that zombie was probably not in a half-crippled state, but was probably completely crippled. She cheerfully put away the storage talisman and turned to look. Zhongli Jiwei's team was currently engaged in a fierce battle with the flying corpse puppets. That grandson Ba Shu no longer pretended to be a good-for-nothing. How could he be reluctant to part with that bit of spirit aura in a life-and-death situation? Seeing 2 flying corpse puppets approach him, Ba Shu hurriedly flung out a few streaks of spirit energy. After a few whooshes, the spirit energy instantly moved in front of the flying corpse puppets. Chapter 3157. If Ba Shu was still worried about running out of spirit power, then he wouldn't be able to get past the hurdle in front of him at all. The 2 flying corpse puppets attacked him from the front and back. One clawed at the back of his neck, while the other bit at his arm with its enormous mouth. Ba Shu was shocked. He rolled to the side and quickly grabbed the arm of one of his companions, using that person's body to block the corpse puppet in front of him. The person whose arm Ba Shu had grabbed was the old student of the Hongfu Academy, Old Pak. Huang Sheng saw this and immediately roared, "What are you doing? Old Pak, get out of the way!" However, how could Old Pak escape in time with his arm in Ba Shu's grasp? Seeing the flying corpse puppet open its enormous mouth and about to bite his chest, Old Pak felt a little sad and couldn't help but wail in his heart, "My life is over." He hadn't expected that he would lose his life here when he came to the secret realm in search of opportunities. He had done his homework for this trip to the secret realm and spent a lot of effort to get the temple to choose him. Thinking of this, Old Pak's heart was filled with sorrow. Clang! A loud sound rang out. Old Pak jumped in fright and immediately pulled himself out of his sorrowful mood. Looking closely, he saw that the flying corpse puppet in front of him had been shot through the back of its head by a black crossbow arrow. The black crowgold arrow had taken out a crystal core. With a shake of the arrowhead, it stuck the crystal core into the ground. Arbor walked forward and gently plucked it out, picking up the crowgold arrow along with the crystal core. She turned her head to look coldly at Ba Shu and roared at the dumbfounded Old Pak. "What are you spacing out for? If you don't even know how to save yourself when it's a matter of life and death, don't expect others to be kind enough to save you." Being reprimanded by a young girl like this, Old Pak's old face flushed red. However, when he thought about it again, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. Wasn't that true? Just now, when he was in danger, he hadn't thought about how to save himself. Instead, he had been wailing in his heart. His methods of handling matters were worse than a young girl's. He was truly ashamed. Ba Shu was stunned for a moment. Then he stabbed the saber in his hand into the head of another flying corpse puppet. He stabbed it several times, as if he wanted to vent his dissatisfaction. When he pulled out the knife, he opened the corpse puppet's head, but didn't find any crystal cores. Not every corpse puppet had a crystal core in its head. Now, those with special abilities knew that the crystal cores in the zombie's head could improve their special abilities. Therefore, on the black market, the crystal cores in the zombie's head were sold for quite a high price. Damn it! He had just seen the little girl pull out several corpse puppet crystal cores. Why was his luck so bad? He was practically carrying it all the way to his grandmother's house. At this moment, Huang Sheng had already dashed to Old Pa's side. He turned around and glared at Ba Shu as he roared, "You bastard! What were you doing just now? Huh?" Looking at Huang Sheng's bulging eyes and cursing expression, Ba Shu couldn't help but curse in his heart. However, considering that Huang Sheng had come from Prince Mo's team, Ba Shu gave him some face. He smiled obsequiously and said with a vulgar expression, "Hey brother, it's just a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" "I saw with my own eyes that you grabbed old Pa and used him as a corpse puppet. Do you still have any humanity left in you?" "What fucking humanity?" Chapter 3158. Bashu fiercely spat in his mind. How could I think so much at a moment of life and death? I just want to survive. Let alone an ordinary person like old Pa standing next to me. It's not like I can't betray a prince or nobleman when I'm still alive. Bashu muttered this in his mind, but he didn't dare to show it on the surface. He smiled obsequiously again and looked at the expressionless Arbor. "Crown Princess, please be the judge. What did I do?" It was a chaotic and dangerous moment at that time. I just did it out of self-defense, didn't I?" "What kind of self-defense is that? You're simply betraying your teammates." Sir Jojo's furious roar made him narrow his eyes dangerously. He scanned Bashu up and down with a terrifying bone-chilling light. Bashu was startled. He took a defensive step back. He didn't know why, but he felt that the little girl's gaze was like a blade that could instantly cut through his veins and skin. It was especially terrifying. "You Crown Princess. Don't listen to his nonsense. Strictly speaking, we don't count as a team. It's just a group of people who coincidentally walked together." Bashu's voice involuntarily became softer when he saw the little stoic's cold face. The little Crown Princess coldly swept her gaze over Bashu, as if she was looking at trash. "I advise you to stay far away from me. If you come within 10 steps of me the next time we meet, I'll kill you." Bashu's heart thumped fiercely, and he hurriedly retreated a dozen or so steps in a panic. He seemed to be able to sense that the little girl wasn't joking with him. Her gaze was especially serious and cold. He was a bit afraid of this little girl. But it wasn't because of her meager cultivation level. It was because not only were there several terrifyingly powerful spiritual beasts and divine beasts by her side, but there was also Prince Mo, His Highness Prince Chun, and the other capricious lords. Bashu didn't dare to court death, and retreated a few more steps. He only turned around when he smelled something fishy. At this time, he had already retreated to the side of Zhongli Jiwei and the others, and was surrounded by the flying corpse puppets. In desperation, he could only summon his sword again, and continue to fight with the flying corpse puppets. Those flying corpse puppets were quite interesting. They just kept chasing after Zhongli Jiwei and the others. As if they wanted to vent their anger on these people, they roared and chased after them. Not a single one flew over to attack Emolien, and the others. Bashu was truly angered by the beating. He cursed in his heart. These bastards only pick the weakest ones to bully. If you have the guts, go find Prince Mo and the others. It was all because they saw that the four-winged flying corpse puppet was about to be smashed to death by Prince Mo and the others. So they were too scared to go over. Even a fucking corpse puppet had intelligence. How could they endure this? Zhongli Jiwei couldn't help but turn her head and shout at old Pa. "Why aren't you coming over to help?" At this critical moment of life and death, one more person meant one more strength. Zhongli Jiwei naturally couldn't bear to see old Pa doing nothing by himself. Why were they being chased by the flying corpse puppets here, while the others could stand aside and watch the fun? The person that Zhongli Jiwei wanted to shout at the most was actually Arbor. But when she saw the Crown Prince's indifferent expression, she didn't dare to shout at Arbor directly, so she took a roundabout way. Chapter 3159. After being yelled at by Zhongli Jiwei, old Pa subconsciously grasped the weapon in his hand. He lifted his foot and was about to walk towards Zhongli Jiwei's group. "Old Pa, why are you still going there?" Huang Sheng yelled at him, grabbing his arm in passing. He glanced at Bashu with disdain. "You're really honest. They're not even on the same team as you. So why are you still going over? Since you're not on the same team, you should stay here. Don't join in the fun." Zhongli Jiwei was so angry that she screamed. As she screamed, she kicked away a corpse puppet in front of her and roared. "What do you mean we're not on the same team? Didn't we enter the secret realm together? You." Her voice was suddenly interrupted by a corpse puppet that pounced in front of her. That corpse puppet moved very quickly. Its sharp claws suddenly stretched out and clawed at her beautiful face. Zhongli Jiwei was so scared that her face turned green. Her whole body fell backwards and hit the ground with a bang. Arbor couldn't help but glance at her. He couldn't help but feel that the back of her head must be hurting. At this moment, Zhongli Jiwei was indeed in so much pain that she couldn't speak. However, she didn't have time to curse. She could only roll to the side and avoid the corpse puppet that suddenly raised its foot to step on her. Damn thing! Zhongli Jiwei couldn't help but be furious. She raised her hand and blocked with the long sword in front of her. Who would have thought that when the corpse puppet grabbed it, the good sword would actually be twisted into a twist? Zhongli Jiwei was so angry that she felt like her chest was about to explode. She finally obtained a level 5 spiritual weapon, but it was destroyed by this corpse. This made her so angry that she wanted to explode. She wanted to kill that corpse puppet. Kill that guy. Zhongli Jiwei threw away the twisting flower sword in her hand, took out a bottle of medicinal liquid from her bosom, and poured it into her mouth. Then, she jumped up, summoned another spirit weapon from her mind, and slashed at the corpse puppet in front of her. She didn't believe that a level 9 spiritual master couldn't beat a corpse puppet. Be careful! Guishuan shouted from the side. Guishuan opened his defensive ring, and a transparent barrier suddenly fell on Zhongli Jiwei's body. At the same time, the corpse puppet's 2 arms suddenly flew out of its body and wrapped around Zhongli Jiwei's neck. Zhongli Jiwei opened her mouth in shock and subconsciously took a step back. Guishuan flew forward and heavily chopped off the corpse puppet's large head with his sword. Only then did this dangerous battle end. More than half of the flying corpse puppets had been dealt with by Ba Shu and the others. Zhongli Jiwei immediately became flustered and exasperated. She walked in front of Old Pak. Knowing that this guy wouldn't resist, she raised her hand and slapped him in the face. Pa! This slap caused everyone to raise their eyebrows. Many people revealed doubtful and puzzled looks. Why did Miss Zhongli throw a tantrum again? Why did she only pick a fight with Old Pa? Don't you have any shame? We've been on the same path for so long, but you suddenly turned hostile. It's fine if you don't come to help, but you still instigated the people around you to listen to you. You don't care about the lives of others. How can you be so shameless? What a flirtatious bitch. Chapter 3160. Everyone was flabbergasted. What was going on? Old Pa became a coquettish bitch? Why did these words sound a bit off? Everyone secretly shifted their gazes to Old Pa's side. Lady Jojo expressionlessly looked at Old Pa, who appeared to be in a daze after being slapped. Her gaze shifted to Zhongli Jiwei, and she slowly walked towards her. Duan, you couldn't resist facepalming. Why couldn't these people let their Jojo off slap? Lady Jojo raised her small hand and returned a slap to Zhongli Jiwei's face. She then backhanded her 2 more slaps, returning it to her thrice. Zhongli Jiwei covered her small face in shock and glared angrily at the woman in front of her. Ever since she entered the mystic realm. Oh no! It should be said that ever since this woman returned to the capital, she, Zhongli Jiwei, had never had a comfortable day. Who are you calling a coquettish bitch? Lady Jojo sternly glared at her. She beckoned with her hand, and a ferrule floating with ink-colored light appeared in her palm. Don't think that Lady Jojo is a fool and can't understand your indirect insults. On the surface, she was scolding Old Pa for having no love for her teammates and not coming to help. But in reality, she was scolding Jojo. She was scolding Jojo for not coming to help, and even instigating Emolien, Duan Yu, and the others not to help. That was exactly what she meant. Lady Jojo's small face was cold as she lightly patted Zhongli Jiwei's head with the ferrule. Say it again. How did she become a coquettish bitch? Simply laughable. Lady Jojo's small face was stoic as she sized up Zhongli Jiwei. It's not too late for you to change your words now. Zhongli Jiwei stared at her angrily, her face flushed red. With so many people watching, how could she be willing to admit defeat under the watchful eyes of so many people? So she stiffened her head and coldly said, You admitted it yourself out of guilt, slap. Zhongli Jiwei was about to go mad from anger. How could this person beat her up so brazenly? Stop! Guishuan frowned and shouted gravely. Crown Prince Consort, what are you doing? Let's talk things out. Arbor raised his eyes and glanced at him. Then he grabbed Zhongli Jiwei's hair and kicked her back. Pung! Zhongli Jiwei suddenly fell flat on her face. Her face was fiercely pressed against the ground. Xiangchang Commandery Princess shrieked. You! Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. I have a medicine to treat stuttering. It costs 80,000 spirit coins. Do you need it? Everyone was speechless. The little crown princess was born with the ability to remain expressionless and infuriate others. Xiangchang Commandery Princess was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She pointed at Arbor and strode forward. Her face was filled with anger. You were the one who kicked me just now. Damn, she didn't know at first. Previously, when she was running towards Brother Ali, she was suddenly sent flying by someone's kick. When she got up to take a look, she was almost scared to vomit by the rotten corpse puppet face in front of her. She had been silently tangled up since just now. How could Brother Ali be so heartless? He actually kicked Xiangchang out. In the end, when she saw Arbor kick Zhongli Jiwei to the ground, she instantly realized that she had wronged Brother Ali. Brother Ali didn't kick her away. It was clearly this woman in front of her. She kicked her far away with one leg. Chapter 3161. Commandery Princess Xiangchang was so infuriated that she broke into a sprint toward Xiao Mu. How could you send me flying with a kick? Why did this person look so irritating? It was such a good opportunity to jump into her big brother Ali's arms. But this damned woman sent it flying with a kick. Arbor saw Xiangchang Princess running over with a fierce look on her face. Without thinking, she sent out a kick and sent her flying again. How annoying. You won't even let a ferret go. What reason do you have for me to let you go now? Lord Jojo silently complained in his heart. Then, he pulled Zhongli Jiwei's hair up. Say it. Who are you calling a flirtatious slut? Zhongli Jiwei was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She thought to herself that she had seen a ghost. She was actually being suppressed by this woman, and there was no room for her to resist. Guishuan was a little angry. Crown Princess, you've gone too far. Arbor glanced at him. Why? Are you trying to be a hero and save the damsel in distress? Guishuan couldn't help but feel a little suffocated by her indifferent attitude. Xiao Mu gazed at him coldly. Don't force yourself to stand out in all matters. If you don't have what it takes, then you're stupid if you insist on making a move. These people were really funny. Zhongli Jiwei was pointing at the mulberry tree and scolding the locust tree. Wasn't it too much to scold her for no reason? Was it too much to be pressed down by her now? Her mouth is too smelly. I'm just washing it for her out of kindness. After saying this, Xiao Mu took out an exquisite flask from Paradise Planet and placed it next to Zhongli Jiwei's lips with a sneer. A boy's urine for you to rinse your mouth. You're really lucky. Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhongli Jiwei's eyes widened in shock. She thought that Arbor wouldn't dare. But in reality there was nothing that Arbor wouldn't dare to do. She grabbed Zhongli Jiwei's hair and pulled her scalp, forcing her to look up. The spout of the pot fell down. Everyone immediately revealed a horrified expression. The crown prince consort was too ferocious. Zhongli Jiwei's face flushed red, and she hastily shut her small mouth, revealing an expression that looked like she was about to cry from being bullied. She turned her head to look at Emolien with teary eyes. The little stoic was baffled. She slapped her chest and said impatiently, I'm the one who bullied you. Why are you glaring at Jojo's lotus? Emolien. Duan Yu couldn't resist chuckling, and he face-bombed in a conflicted mood. Everyone couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Was she glaring at Prince Emo? She was clearly pitifully asking Prince Emo for help. He didn't know what kind of expression this little stoic had in her eyes. Once a very normal matter popped out of her mouth. It felt like something wasn't right. Rinse your mouth with the boy's urine. You can keep your mouth clean in the future. Arbor directly gave Zhongli Jiwei a pot of urine to wash her face and rinse her mouth, then threw a copper pot on her face. Ow! Zhongli Jiwei choked when she opened her mouth. After coughing twice, she felt that her entire body, face and mouth was filled with the smell of urine. She was so disgusted that she retched repeatedly. She turned her face to the side and punched the ground, gagging, crying and cursing angrily. Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. Stay far away from me when you see me in the future. Don't make things difficult for yourself. You bitch. Zhongli Jiwei staggered to her feet and pointed at Xiao Mu, sending a burst of spiritual energy flying over without any explanation. Chapter 3162. Arbor coldly stared back. The holy wood vine drilled out of his hand and scattered Zhongli Jiwei's spiritual energy with a vine whip. Immediately after, he lashed out with his whip again. Even though they were far away, everyone could only hear a loud paw sound. A whip mark immediately appeared on Zhongli Jiwei's body. She curled up in pain and fell to the ground with a plop. Miss Zhongli. Guishuan quickly flew forward and stood in front of Zhongli Jiwei. He roared at Arbor. Are you done? Ignorant. Jojo's eyes suddenly turned bone-chilling. He raised his hand, and the vine whip formed from Holywood wriggled like a snake and lashed at Guishuan. Naturally, Guishuan wouldn't stand there stupidly and take Jojo's whip. Therefore, Guishuan dodged, and the whip fell on Zhongli Jiwei's body again. She had just lifted her body up when she suddenly fell to the ground. Her entire body was in so much pain that she howled. You see, you don't want to save her either, Arbor coldly said. Why do you have to pretend to be a saint? Me. I don't buy it. After saying this, a pair of pitch-black eyes, like the deep waters of a cold lake, coldly stared at Guishuan. With a whoosh, he swept to his side. Just now, when this miss slapped people and scolded them, you didn't say anything. When she pointed at Old Paw's face and scolded the crown princess, you didn't say anything. Now you think you have the right to jump out and say anything? Get lost! Arbor angrily roared. With a flick of his fingers, dozens of purple talismans with cold light jumped up and quickly attacked Guishuan's body. Guishuan was shocked and quickly retreated. At the same time, the dozens of attack talismans were already heading straight for him. Bang 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 bang. You people really are hypocrites. Xiao Mu gazed coldly at the flustered man, who was in dire straits from the explosion of the attack talismans. It's as if in this world, you're the only ones who are allowed to casually scold and disrespect others. But others are not allowed to retaliate and disrespect you? She stared coldly at Guishuan and suddenly flicked her wrist. Go bite her to death. Guishuan was shocked. She didn't expect that her attempt to save someone would backfire. Instead, she had angered the young crown princess and made her want to kill someone. Crown princess, please have mercy. Guishuan hurriedly shouted. Miss Zhongli knows her mistake. Guishuan wasn't a fool. He finally realized what was going on. In front of the little crown princess, you really can't force yourself. In fact, this small matter might only require an apology from Miss Zhongli to be completely resolved. It was also possible that if she didn't intervene, after the little crown princess rinsed Miss Zhongli's mouth, this matter would be over. Even if Miss Zhongli retaliated in a flustered and exasperated manner, she would only be whipped twice by the little crown princess, however. Now, the matter seemed to have become more and more complicated because of her own interference. Guishuan hurriedly reached out to help Zhongli Jiwei up from the ground. He didn't care that she was covered in urine and quickly said, Miss Zhongli, quickly apologized to the crown princess. It was more important to save her life first, Guishuan thought. Unexpectedly, Zhongli Jiwei angrily pushed his hand away. Her face flushed red and she scolded. I apologize to her? Who does she think she is? Chapter 3163. She's just a lowly woman from the lower star domain. My father is Great General Zhongli. I'm the eldest miss of the Zhongli estate. Let's see if she dares to kill me. She was so infuriated by Arbor that she had completely lost her rationality and didn't know what she was saying anymore. She only knew that she had lost so much face in front of everyone today. She had really lost all her face. She could really throw caution to the wind now. Ah! Zhongli Jiwei suddenly screamed, and all the voices came to an abrupt halt. With a bang, she fell to the ground with her face facing the sky. A little blue snake slithered out from under her body. It raised its little head and scanned the surroundings before hissing and flicking its tongue. It hastily slithered back to its little master's side and obediently climbed onto her wrist. Old Pak's face had already turned pale from fright. He hurriedly said in self-reproach, sorry. This happened because of me. He didn't know what to say now. This Miss Zhongli usually had a bad temper and yelled at everyone. But he didn't expect that she would suffer such a huge loss in the hands of this stoic-faced little crown princess today. These aristocrats of the great divine continent shouldn't implicate a small citizen like him when they fought among themselves. Arbor glanced at Old Pack indifferently. It has nothing to do with you. This Zhongli Jue had been scolding her the entire time. She had been scolding her Arbor the entire time. Old Pack was merely being used as a raft by that woman. Arbor glanced coldly at Zhongli Jue and curled her lips mockingly. Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Why don't you ask the king of hell yourself when you go to hell? Guishuan was truly stupefied. Although he had seen the young crown prince consort's swift and decisive manner when she made a move, he truly didn't expect that the young crown prince consort would dare to make a move on Miss Zhongli. Guishuan glanced at Prince Mo, who was watching the commotion from the side, and almost didn't know what to say. What a strange woman, Prince Mo muttered. He stepped forward and held Arbor's little hand. Later, I'll ask the old man to remove that old bastard's position. Otherwise he would think that being a great general was a big deal. Usually, he didn't see many places where he could make contributions. He just stayed at home every day and used his past achievements to invite this and that. It was detestable just looking at it. Did he really think that this world was conquered by Zhongli's family? Duan Yu speechlessly glanced at Prince Mo. Somehow, he felt that this guy was becoming more and more of an incapable ruler. Sir Jojo nodded expressionlessly. I think your father doesn't have a good eye for people. That's right. Mo Lian immediately nodded. That's why I'm quite worried about him. He's always surrounded by sycophants. No wonder the development of Shenzhou is so slow. In the future, the world will depend on the two of us. Duan Yu. He felt that compared to Mo Lian's poisonous mouth, he was more benevolent to his royal father in terms of shamelessness. If Prince Mo claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Saying that the world would depend on the two of them in the future, when the emperor of the Shenzhou province heard this, he would definitely fall to the ground in anger. Guishuan opened his mouth and couldn't resist saying, Crown Princess. How could the little crown princess still pay attention to him? She directly turned around and pulled Mo Lian away. Huang Xing suddenly shouted, Hey, that main hall has appeared. It's in front, the main hall we went to before. Chapter 3164. Arbor's eyes lit up, and he turned to nod at Huang Xing. Come. After saying that, he quickly pulled Mo Lian and called out to Duan Yu and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, before dashing towards the main hall that appeared out of thin air. Could it be that the space inside the mystic realm is changing again? There should be another 4 hours before it changes. Mo Lian calculated the time and said, It's not time yet. Arbor nodded and wanted to say something else, but Qiu Qiu shouted, Master, the little monk is making a fuss about wanting to come out. He's rolling around on the ground, and I can't control him. Wasn't rolling around your favorite thing to do? Could it be that rolling around was contagious? Sir Jojo said with a stoic face. Then let him out. The little monk was released, and his chubby body hung onto Jojo's arm as he whined. Benefactress, this little monk couldn't pee at all just now. Arbor. Mo Lian was exasperated as she pulled him over and threw him onto her back. It must have been hard on you. The little monk continued to grumble. Benefactress, it's wrong of you to force this little monk to pee like this. It won't happen next time, Sir Jojo said with a dark expression. The little monk sniffled. Benefactress, you said you would keep bringing this little monk with you after entering the mystic realm. But you keep lying to me and tossing me somewhere else at the drop of a hat. I'll keep bringing you with me from now on. Benefactress, this little monk's stomach is a bit hungry. Arbor. Benefactress, can you not make Benefactress Crown Prince carry this little monk? Mo Lian really wanted to slap him to the ground. She couldn't get him off even if she wanted to. Why did this imp like to prattle so much? Benefactress, this little monk told you just now that this little monk's stomach is very hungry. Duan Yu couldn't resist guffawing. This guy really made people laugh uncontrollably. Arbor took out a white and chubby bun from his inner world and dashed to Mo Lian's side, stuffing the little monk's mouth with the bun. The world fell silent. Jojo let out a sigh of relief. The venerable peach blossom immortal floated around them for a while and suddenly asked, "Hey, have you noticed? Although the palace is right in front of us, we've already sprinted for over a dozen kilometers. And it's still just a short distance away." Hearing this, everyone stopped in their tracks. As soon as they stopped, Huang Sheng and Old Pa also stopped. Behind them, Guishuan, Xiangchang Princess, and the others also stopped. Guishuan was still holding the unconscious Zhongli Jiwei. She raised her eyes and looked in the direction of Arbor. She gritted her teeth and said, "Crown Princess, Miss Zhongli was bitten by your poisonous pet, can you? There is no antidote." This Guishuan had caused her trouble again and again. Arbor's attitude towards this person was already extremely impatient. Guishuan, who was holding Zhongli Jiwei's arm, stiffened. Lowering his head to look at Zhongli Jiwei, he saw that her complexion was incomparably dark, and her breathing was faintly discernible. This poison was truly vicious and ruthless. It had only been a few moments since she was poisoned, but she seemed to be on the verge of dying. This Zhongli Jiwei was a level 9 spiritual cultivator, yet she couldn't withstand that little blue snake's poison? Guishuan secretly glanced at the young crown prince consort again with some wariness in her heart. Arbor simply couldn't be bothered to care what this person was thinking. Whatever he wanted to guard against had nothing to do with her. Chapter 3165. As long as this Guishuan didn't find trouble with her, she naturally wouldn't neurotically find trouble with him. If he had eyes, he naturally wouldn't find trouble with her again. It's clearly this main hall. Look. Sun Moon Temple, do you see it? Huang Xing pointed ahead at the inverted signboard hanging above the main hall. This is the main hall I came to before. It was also around here that I met Miss Qi and the Fatty brothers. Mo Lian narrowed her eyes, and her gaze gradually shifted to a certain spot as she tilted her head up slightly. Following his gaze, Xiaomu looked over, and a spectacular spectacle suddenly appeared before her eyes. The entire sky was covered by a layer of aquablue film, as if it was a shallow ocean. Under the refraction of the sunlight, it emitted a transparent arc. Above their heads was a row of extremely extravagant and resplendent main halls, hanging upside down. And the main hall they saw on the horizon earlier was merely a projection of this main hall hanging upside down in the sky. Colored glass spires, golden houses, and those rows of main halls were hanging downwards, and the spires were shining brightly above their heads. The most flabbergasting thing was that there seemed to be several people hanging upside down on the top of the colored glass spires. Without exception, those people's faces were hideous and distorted, and they were strung up on the top of the colored glass spires like candied haws on a skewer. Everyone shuddered from the bottom of their hearts. Oh my God, what was going on? On the other hand, Xiaomu, and Mo Lian, and the others' expressions turned solemn, and they unexpectedly retreated several steps, then several more steps. This is the other boundary of the Sun-Moon mystic realm, Arbor immediately said. Run, Duan Yu suddenly ordered, and he started running backwards with Mo Lian, Arbor, and the others. At the same time, this piece of land was slowly tilting, and they were like small pets trapped in a square box. As this box slowly flipped, they were upside down one by one. Guishuan's face immediately changed, and she subconsciously tightened her grip on Zhongli Jiwei. He suddenly understood what was going on with the people strung up on the crystal spire. It must be because when the box was flipped over, those people didn't have time to escape and fell straight down. They came into close contact with the spire of the hall, and fell straight onto the glazed roof. He gave it a try, and sure enough, levitating was impossible. It turned out that during the process of space displacement, a person's ability to float would be blocked. Guishuan took a deep breath. He was practically dragging Zhongli Jiwei as he ran. Then he realized that his speed had been slowed down quite a bit. At this time, Arbor and Emolien's group had already run out of the boundary. At the same time, they dragged the panting Huang Sheng and Old Pack out of the boundary. Old Pack panted heavily as he sat on the ground, panting heavily. His pupils suddenly contracted as he looked at the somewhat unbelievable scene in front of him. That boundary was like a box, and it was currently flipping over at an even faster speed. Guishuan finally chose to give up on Zhongli Jiwei in his internal struggle, and rapidly retreated from the boundary. When he looked back, he saw that Zhongli Jiwei had already opened her eyes, and was moving her lips at him, glaring at him hatefully. In the end, she screamed and fell down with the others. Guishuan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he saw that Zhongli Jiwei had already become one of the candied haws on the glazed roof. Chapter 3166. Guishuan subconsciously turned back to glance at Arbor. He originally thought that she would look at him with disdain, but unexpectedly, she didn't even spare him a glance. He only felt sorrow in his heart, as if a fox grieves for the death of a rabbit. Arbor had seen all kinds of faces in life and death situations, so she wasn't surprised that Guishuan could make such a choice. In fact, no one could find fault with Guishuan's decision. In a life and death situation, who would truly risk their life for someone who was neither a relative nor a friend? Guishuan's slender face had a trace of haze. He was somewhat depressed, but there was also an inexplicable anger. He didn't know what was going on. Facing this little crown princess, he always felt like he was punching cotton, with no place to exert his strength. If she ignored you, you couldn't vent your anger, even if you were as angry as the sky. Guishuan took a deep breath, and forced himself to turn back calmly. He was the most outstanding son of the Gu family, so he had to calm down and not let his anger rob him of his rationality. At this moment, the space they were in changed from top to bottom. Many people roared as they fell from Sir Jojo's side. Arbor looked at these people as if she was looking at an idiot. Emolienne pulled her little hand, and with a light leap, she safely landed with Sir Jojo. When the space was completely changed, looking from afar, on the horizon, there seemed to be two palaces separated by a distance, one in front and one behind. But now everyone knew that the palace behind was only a projection. Arbor pursed her lips and suddenly said, "We've been fooled." Most people's attention was on the main hall at this time. When they heard Arbor's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. Princess Xiangchang covered her aching cheek, and turned her head, pursing her lips. She originally wanted to yell at her, but when she thought of Zhongli Jiwei's dead face, she was suddenly speechless. Her face was swollen after being kicked twice by this stoic face. Now that she saw her big brother Ali, she was actually a little traumatized and didn't dare to casually go over to look for a beating. Sir Jojo turned to look at Emolienne and the other two and said, "This mystic realm is definitely not something that can be changed in 8 hours. You see, it's changing irregularly now. Moreover, the space has changed once, but the time hasn't changed." Prince Emo and the others nodded. This secret realm should have an owner. Arbor's words caused an uproar among the crowd. The master of this secret realm is trying to think of a way to kill us. Therefore, there was no such thing as an 8-hour cycle. The master of the mystic realm must be hiding somewhere. And when he noticed someone walking into the boundary, he would flip time and space if everyone was caught off guard. They would definitely be tricked by it. A sweet-looking woman walked out from beside Guishuan and said with a smile, "But I still have a question. Just now, during the space swap, everyone escaped the boundary, then the space flipped, and we were flipped from the ground to the surface. Then everyone lost the gravitational pull and fell down. Why is everyone fine?" A light bulb lit up in Guishuan's mind, and he nodded solemnly. "That's right. Why?" Sir Jojo blinked and looked at Emolienne, then at Duan Yu and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. No wonder these people were falling down like dumplings. So it turned out that they couldn't float after losing the gravitational pull. Chapter 3167. Thinking of this, when she saved Huang Sheng, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal also floated down while carrying her, and didn't fall down at that time. She even mocked Huang Sheng for being an idiot, and asking why he couldn't float. Now it seemed like they couldn't float either. The master of this mystic realm couldn't control a transcendent realm. This thought suddenly flashed through Sir Jojo's mind, and he glanced at the woman who spoke. He remembered that this girl seemed to be the Long family's Longman currently. They didn't seem to have any conflicts, but because she was a member of the imperial capital's Long family branch, Arbor couldn't develop any feelings for her. The little fellow pursed her lips and replied irritatingly, It depends on cultivation. Your cultivation isn't high enough, so who's to blame? Long Min still had a sweet smile on her face and wasn't angry. On the side, Guishuang couldn't help but feel angry. Looking at this stoic face's smug attitude, he felt his hands itch. That smug look on his face was really infuriating. It's not like your cultivation is high, so why are you so smug? Sir Jojo turned around, but before he could take a step, he saw a person jump out from the water blue membrane, outside the hall with a whoosh. It should be said that it was a guy who bounced out from the water blue rippling membrane. Bang! It heavily smashed out of the boundary, and landed in front of them. Oh my god, my waist. Mata clutched his waist that was about to break. He looked up and happened to meet the little stoic's wooden face. His mouth instantly twitched, and he felt terrible. Ahahaha. Heh, what a coincidence, Jojo, oh crown prince, everyone, hee hee, you're all here. Mata held her waist, like a woman who was 8 months pregnant, and walked a few steps forward with her belly bulging. Arbor looked at this guy expressionlessly. How did you roll out from inside? Mata instantly looked conflicted. How did I roll out? I flew out myself, okay. Seeing Sir Jojo's wooden face and disdainful eyes looking at him, Mata instantly felt stifled. Ahaha, alright Jojo, since you're here, then go in and play. Who knows, we might be able to clear all the levels, and get the grand prize. Everyone perked up their ears to listen to Mata's words. When they heard this, they all gathered around. Long Min smiled and said, Little brother, can you tell us more about the situation inside? Mata gave her a sideways glance. Who are you? He was talking to Qiao. Why were all these people swarming over? Are Xian and the others inside? There are a lot of people inside. The Holy Sun, the two from the Panga clan, and Queen Fu Sha from the Dafeng tribe are all here. Then how did you get out? The little stoic looked him up and down in displeasure. Were you chased out by someone? Mata rubbed his nose awkwardly. No. I came out by myself. Then it must have been spat out by this water blue film-like barrier. The little stoic said expressionlessly. Mata was speechless. Actually I failed to clear the level. Mata scratched his head, and excitedly took out a fist-sized stone that emitted a lustrous white light from his pocket. But I got this reward. A divine stone for cultivation. Guishuan exclaimed in shock. He had seen it in a book left behind by his ancestors. Chapter 3168. This kind of stone was specially provided for God-tier masters to cultivate. It was extremely precious and very rare in the world. Even in the Divine Prefecture, such a fist-sized divine stone was rarely seen in the black market. Even if they failed the trial, they could still obtain such a large divine stone. Everyone's mood became excited. Holy shit, this was the right way. This was the right way to open the mystic realm. They came to the mystic realm to fish for treasures. They had suffered enough along the way. After coming to the mystic realm, they had been on tenterhooks for so long. Finally, they could come into contact with the door of treasures. Ha 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 ha. Let's go. Arbor shook his little chin at Mata. Mata hurriedly waved his hand. We can't go in. Those who are ejected can't go in again. As he said that, he chuckled and scratched the back of his head. I'll wait for you here. I reckon Fatty, and the others will come out soon. I'll let them know then. Lord Jojo was very unhappy. He took out a storage talisman. Come here. Everyone. Exclamation point. Was there anyone who cheated like you? If the mystic realm really had a master spirit, it should have destroyed you, cheater, first. Mata's eyes lit up. Oh my Jojo, you're so smart. Come, quickly take me. What I love the most is following Qiao to take risks, Rob, together with her. He happily allowed himself to be stored inside Qiao Mu's storage talisman. Arbor stuffed the talisman under his sleeve. In fact, he had already moved into Paradise Planet and placed Mata on Paradise Planet. That guy was her important companion. Of course, she wouldn't be at ease putting him in a storage talisman. Who knew if the storage talisman would be sensed by the barrier when they entered, and the storage talisman would be torn apart. As for her Paradise Planet, as long as she didn't casually open this spirit realm, no one would sense the spirit realm's aura from her. Moreover, she was inexplicably confident that even this sun-moon mystic realm couldn't compare to her star realm. The Sun-Moon Mystic Realm wanted to crush her star realm? Hee. It would be impossible for him to even dream about it in his next life. Sir Jojo took a step forward expressionlessly and led the way to the front of the hall that was surrounded by circles of water-blue ripples. Mata picked a peach on Paradise Planet and was nibbling on it when he suddenly remembered something and exclaimed, "Ah, Jojo actually recovered." Lady Jojo curled her lips. What a slow-witted fellow. The group of people had just arrived at the entrance of the main hall when they heard two pung-pung sounds. A pair of dusty young men were suddenly thrown out and were thrown next to the pillars of the main hall. Arbor turned to look at them and saw that it was the Crown Prince of the Duke of Eternal Peace, Mo Lu, and the idiot prince of the underworld continent, Ming Bao. Ming Bao saw the two of them at a glance and hurriedly jumped up with a smile. "Ayaya, Divine Prefecture's Crown Prince, Crown Princess, nice to meet you. Oh haha, Prince Chen of Tsangzhou is here too. And this is..." The little stoic walked past him and didn't even spare him a glance out of the corner of her eye. She directly climbed up the steps and stood in front of that circular arched entrance. Ming Bao didn't retreat in the slightest because of the little Crown Princess's cold expression. He even walked forward with a grin and hurriedly introduced her. Crown Princess, let me tell you. Do you see the groove on that door frame? Put a spirit stone inside, and the door will automatically open." The little Crown Princess retreated a few more steps and stood next to Mo Lien and the others. Chapter 3169. Once she retreated, Long Min and the others impatiently squeezed forward. "Don't push," Gui Xuan said in a low voice. "Since spirit stones can open this door, then we all have a chance to go in." Long Min took the lead and walked up the stairs, flicking the spirit stones she had prepared earlier into a groove above the door knocker. Dang! The door slowly opened, and Long Min happily stepped in first. At the same time, two people also appeared behind Long Min and quickly followed in. In less than 3 seconds, those two people were sent flying by the blue water membrane. With two bam-bam sounds, they landed heavily on the ground, unable to straighten their backs for a long time. Ming Bao pointed at those two and laughed maniacally. There are actually people so stingy, thinking of not spending a single spirit stone and sneaking in with others. My heavens! Now we're in for it. Those two people climbed up from the ground, embarrassed, and squeezed forward to take out 2 spirit stones each. At this time, Gui Xuan and the others had already walked in. Those two people flicked the spirit stones into the groove, but after waiting for a long time, they didn't see any reaction from the door. The other person's expression changed. As if unwilling to give up, he took out another spirit stone and tried again. In the end, there was still no reaction. As if their parents had died, the two of them looked at each other with teary faces. They were both regretful and angry, thinking that if they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have coveted that small advantage just now. Arbor saw those two people standing at the door and blocking the way. So she said, "Please make way." She didn't let the others enter the house first because she was being modest. The reason was that she couldn't let others follow behind her and take advantage of her. So the best way was to let them all go in first, and Sir Jojo and his group of relatives and friends go in last. How could Prince Mo and the others not know what the little fellow was thinking? They didn't show anything on their faces, but they were secretly laughing in their hearts. Those two people were very angry that they couldn't enter even though they had the door. But when they saw Sir Jojo coming forward, they couldn't help but roll their eyes. One of them licked his lips and said with a smile, "Crown Prince Consort, why don't you put us into that storage talisman as well, and bring us in together?" Sure. The little Crown Princess raised a finger and gestured for them to keep quiet. She even looked left and right with her small head, which made the two people feel a little creeped out. There was nothing around here. What was the little Crown Princess looking at? The main spirit is secretly watching you from the shadows. Take a guess. If I put you into the storage talisman and bring you in, will the boundary of the secret realm crush you and the storage talisman? The two men shuddered and broke out in a cold sweat. When he looked up again, he saw that Arbor had already opened the door to the main hall with spirit stones, and was the first to enter. Mo Lien and the other two entered in a single file. Naturally, they paid the spirit stones as well. Huang Sheng and Old Pa, who were following behind them, also hurriedly took out 2 spirit stones and threw them into the groove above the door knocker. The group of them walked along the ground that was paved with large pieces of bluestone bricks. Along the way, they felt that the entire main hall was empty. "Jojo, can I come out?" Mata asked excitedly. "It's better if you don't come out," Arbor said mildly. "I suspect that this main spirit is eerily watching us. It can't sense where you are, but that doesn't mean it doesn't want to eject you." Chapter 3170. If you appear beside us, it definitely won't let you off. Mata thought about it and agreed. He said with some vexation, "This way, I won't be able to see what's going on outside. But let me tell you, there are pits everywhere in this main hall. You have to be especially careful when it asks you to pick a door or passageway. You'll suffer greatly if you pick the wrong one." Arbor blinked. "Get Chochio to throw you a demonic pupil, and you'll be able to see the outside environment." Mata was silent, evidently going to ask Chochio what a demonic pupil was. Arbor didn't mind and walked forward with Emolien and the rest for a while. At this time, they heard Mata's cheerful voice. "Jojo, I can see it. Chochio said it's fine to throw this eye on you. That way, you'll have this eye. As long as you walk, I'll be able to follow you wherever you go. I'll be able to see the outside environment clearly, haha." The demonic pupil was originally an accessory of Chochio's little brother, the demonic pupil seed, so it naturally wouldn't harm its little master, Sir Jojo. Throwing it on Jojo's body was indeed the best option. "Forward." Right. Continue forward. There's only one door ahead, so you don't need to make any choice. After entering, there are 2 passageways, so you'll have to choose." Mata was mumbling something inside the cell. Meanwhile, the little monk was sprawled on Emolien's shoulder with a sleepy expression. Arbor looked back and saw that the little fellow couldn't even lift his eyelids. He hurriedly said, Kong, do you want to sleep? How about sleeping in the storage talisman?" The little monk hurriedly lifted his eyelids and shook his head with a resolute expression. "This young monk isn't sleepy. This young monk is just a little hungry. Benefactress, give this young monk a peach to perk himself up, and this young monk will immediately be energized." Emolien, Duan Yu, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked at him exasperatedly. Arbor expressionlessly handed him a watery peach. The little monk's eyes immediately lit up. He opened his small mouth and was about to take a bite when he suddenly realized that the peach in his small hand had disappeared without a trace. He raised a hand to rub his eyes, and his spirit suddenly roused again. He hugged Emolien's slender neck and cried out in shock. "Benefactor Crown Prince, it's bad. This little monk's peach has been stolen." Emolien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The peach in the little monk's hand must have been taken away by the master of the secret realm. In this secret ground, it could control the sun, moon, and universe. Yin-yang, and the 5 elements were all under its control. Right now, all it had to do was take away a peach from the little monk's hand. It was way too easy. "Oh, my little monk's peach." Xiaomu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and she took out a slender, transparent bottle from her inner world. There was a faint, captivating red liquid flowing inside. It was very pleasing to the eye, and it instantly made the grieving little monk's eyes pop out. "Benefactress, what's this delicious thing?" A suspicious liquid seeped out of the corner of the little monk's mouth. Arbor patted his head and stuffed the bottle into his hand. "Hold it properly. Don't let anyone snatch it away again." The little monk nodded repeatedly and muttered something. Then, this little oddball used a circle of dazzling golden Buddhist seals to surround himself. He was indeed willing to go all out for this stutter. After the little monk protected himself with the protective circle, he sprawled on Emolien's back and fiddled with that thin bottle to open. Chapter 3171. The faint fragrance of peach blossoms immediately wafted out of the bottle. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's eyes immediately brightened. "Jojo, I want one too." Duan Yu quickly swept the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal with a disdainful gaze. This guy wouldn't even let go of a child's food, Sir Jojo was already thoroughly aware of the venerable peach blossom immortal's foodie nature. She didn't mind and took out several bottles of peach juice from her pocket, giving each to the three of them. She used the peaches piled up in the storehouse to make them when she had nothing to do. The steps were very simple. First, she separated the peach juice from the flesh, then chilled the peach juice. Finally, she added in some tiny pieces. A bottle of very tasty peach juice was made. Sir Jojo's culinary skills were mediocre, but he was truly very good at brewing wine and making fruit juice. Right now, it was a scorching day inside the sun-moon mystic realm, and the temperature was just right. There was no need to mention the sourness of a bottle of chilled fruit juice. The little monk finished the entire bottle in one go. Afterwards, he stretched out his chubby hand and waved it at Arbor, calling out childishly, "Benefactress, this young monk isn't full yet." Arbor couldn't help but be amused by him. "You want to be full of fruit juice? Then how many bottles do you have to drink?" The little monk suddenly turned his head sharply and looked at the empty main hall behind him. He asked with a frown, "Benefactress, why do I feel like someone is following us?" Sir Jojo feigned ignorance. "Who is following us? You're thinking too much. All right, now that you're full, come down and walk a few steps to avoid gaining weight again." The little monk slid down from Prince Mo's back and muttered as he strode with his short legs, "This young monk isn't fat at all. On the other hand, Benefactress, your face is a bit rounder than when we first met. It's obvious that you gained weight." Arbor. Emolian couldn't help but be amused when she heard this. She took out a roasted chicken drumstick from her inner world and waved it in front of the little monk. "Kong Kong, eat this roasted chicken drumstick." Kong Kong solemnly raised his small face. "This young monk is vegetarian all year round and doesn't touch meat. Amitba, don't tempt this young monk with a chicken drumstick. This young monk won't look at it." Duan Yu's mouth twitched. The venerable peach blossom immortal couldn't help but laugh out loud. No matter how he looked at this little monk, he was adorably silly and funny. "I'm not eating. If I don't eat, I'll have to take advantage of myself." Emolian smiled and shook the roasted chicken leg in her hand. "Hey, you can give me the roasted chicken leg." In a flash, the venerable peach blossom immortal snatched the roasted chicken drumstick from Emolian's hands. He called out, "Jojo, give me another pot of peach blossom wine. It's perfect for my roasted chicken drumstick." Gluttonous. A faint smile flashed through the little stoic's eyes, and she took out an unopened jar of peach blossom wine. Just as she opened it, she heard, "Gulp." The sound of saliva being swallowed could be clearly heard by everyone. The little monk abruptly turned his head and saw a thin and long braid slightly shrinking behind the pillar. The smile in Emolien's eyes deepened. He couldn't hide it any longer. "It's about to jump out. Look at your little appearance. Your innate glutton nature has already been revealed without a doubt. From the moment you snatched the little monk Kong Kong's peach, Arbor and his group already knew what method to use to lure out the main spirit in this mystic realm. How about we finish eating before leaving?" Sir Jojo suggested. "We're not in a hurry anyway." "Okay, I'll make some soup pancakes for you. Put in some mushrooms and beef." Chapter 3172. Suddenly, there was a slight movement in the air. An invisible hand grabbed at the roasted chicken drumstick in the venerable peach blossom immortal's hand. How could the venerable peach blossom immortal let the little main spirit grab it? He dodged to the side and waved the roasted chicken drumstick in his hand, praising it, delicious. The little main spirit hiding behind the pillar could not take it anymore. She suddenly jumped out from behind the pillar and shouted with her hands on her hips, "You! Put down the chicken drumstick in your hand." Everyone looked up and saw the little wimpy child's small hands and feet. Looking at her small body, she should be a 5 or 6-year-old child. Her voice was thin and shrill, like a little girl's. When they took a closer look, they could not help but be slightly stunned. That child's face was covered in a layer of monkey hair. From afar, she looked like a little spirit monkey. She could not have transformed from a spirit monkey. Right. Arbor looked at the child carefully again and confirmed that she should be a human. But for some reason, this face, seeing that they were all looking at her, the little girl subconsciously shrank back behind the pillar. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. As if she had thought of something, she said softly to the little girl, You can come out now. Look, you've been here alone for so long. You must be very annoyed. It's good that you come out, and we have a chat with you. I'm not going to talk to you. The little girl stuck half her head out. Her long and thin braids swayed behind her. Arbor could not help but laugh. She took out 2 small bottles of peach juice and waved them at her. You don't want them? The little girl immediately ran out from behind the pillar. With the speed of a 100-meter dash, she pounced over and snatched the 2 bottles of juice from Sir Jojo's hands. Kong Kong blinked his adorable eyes, put his palms together and chanted, "Ba, my dear female benefactor. You were the one who snatched my peach just now, weren't you?" Arbor's mouth twitched. The little girl with the monkey hair on her face and slightly narrowed pupils turned around and glared fiercely at the little monk. "Stupid monk. What are you nagging about? Who took your peach?" "I didn't. Young female benefactor, you haven't wiped the peach juice off your mouth." "Scram!" The little girl waved her sharp little claws at him. The little monk immediately glanced at Arbor pitifully. "Benefactress, she's especially fierce. Help this little monk educate her." Arbor raised his hand and rubbed his little bald head. "This little girl has been locked up here for so long. It's inevitable that she's in a bad mood. Kong Kong, you have to be nicer to others." "All right then. This little monk will share half of my vegetarian buns with her in the future." The small monk made a difficult decision. His expression was that of a brave warrior breaking his wrist. Arbor couldn't help but laugh. She wasn't a vegetarian. He could eat all kinds of meat and fish, so why would he want half a vegetarian bun from you? "What's your name?" Arbor asked. That little girl was wary of men like Emolien and Duanyu, but she inexplicably wanted to get close to Arbor. "Sister calls me Little Monkey." She blinked and hugged the peach juice tightly, refusing to let go. However, her eyes kept staring at the roasted chicken drumstick in the venerable peach blossom immortal's hand. "Little Monkey, what kind of name was this?" Xiaomu creased her brows. "Is your sister the master of the Sun-Moon mystic realm?" The little monkey nodded and stretched out her little claws, attempting to snatch the roasted chicken drumstick in the venerable peach blossom immortal's hand. Chapter 3173. Arbor saw an old cross-shaped scar on her palm and couldn't help but ask, "What happened to your hand?" Little Monkey's eyes reddened sadly. "When my sister left, I wanted to go with her. But I can't get out of this hall. Every time I go out, I'm bounced back. Every time I go out, I'm bounced back. One time I got hurt. Shall I change your name?" "No." Little Monkey suddenly jumped up and ran away. "I'll be called Little Monkey. I'll be called Little Monkey." Arbor seemed to have thought of something and looked at her in a daze. "Jojo." Emolien saw that she was in a daze and quickly reached out to tug at her. "What are you thinking of?" "Nothing." She just vaguely thought of something in the past. Back then, she seemed to have been so lonely for a period of time. She quickly composed herself and winked at Emolien. She turned her head slightly and said, "Let's continue forward." Little Monkey's sister was the owner of this mystic realm, and from what Little Monkey said, her sister seemed to have left a long time ago. So the person who had been changing spaces in this mystic realm, wanting to kill more people, was actually Little Monkey herself. Arbor thought of this and couldn't help but sigh softly. He didn't know how the people from the temple got the right to enter and exit the mystic realm. According to Little Monkey's words, her elder sister should be a reclusive senior expert. Perhaps she was thousands of years old. Arbor's group walked forward and passed through the side door of the hall. Sure enough, they arrived at the 2 passageways. They couldn't see the end of the left and right passageways. For a moment, they were in a dilemma and didn't know how to choose. At this moment, Mata said happily, "Jojo, take the left. I took the right passageway just now. There were 9 treasure rooms in front. I randomly went into one and picked up a stone, and was bounced back out. I'm guessing that the left passageway should have an even bigger treasure." Sir Jojo paced back and forth between the 2 passageways. Then, he stopped and looked carefully at the crooked characters carved into the stone wall. Jojo, stop looking. Many people have studied it here, but they couldn't figure out which country's words came from even after a few hours. Mata snorted. "Don't waste time. Listen to me." Arbor tilted his head and stared for a while. Suddenly he said, "Hey, wait." She reached into her inner world and took out a handwritten letter. She flipped through a few pages and then flipped through a few more pages. She tilted her head and compared the crooked characters on the stone wall. Her eyes suddenly lit up. "Here." She pointed to the passage on the right. "This way." Mata was dumbfounded and shouted from within Paradise Planet. "Hey Jojo, isn't this the path I took before?" "That's not right." "That's right. You're on the right track." "But I was ejected." "That's because you're unlucky," Jojo said expressionlessly. Mata thought about it and realized that his luck was definitely not even 1/10 of Jojo's. "Jojo, how can you be so sure that I'm on the right track?" "My master told me," Xiao Xiao said with a face full of confidence. Seeing that everyone was dumbfounded, the little guy flipped open his handwritten letter and pointed to the wall. "Look, my master wrote it. This bird character means stop moving forward." Chapter 3174. Everyone gathered their heads together and looked at the strange characters circled in red on the wall and compared them to Jojo's master's handwritten notes. Sure enough, her master had written the same bird language and even circled it with a red circle, and below it was a small word, "Stop." "Look, my master wrote this too," Sir Jojo exclaimed happily, pointing to the bird language on the right side of the passage, and showed them the handwriting on the little notebook. Her master had added two very obvious words under the bird text, "treasure." She had even drawn an arrow, which meant to move forward. Holy shit, everyone was dumbfounded and looked at each other. "Jojo, the owner of this arcane realm, could it be? It's your master." Sir Jojo scratched his little head, shook his head and said, "Impossible. My master has never been to this place." "How do you know?" "I guessed," Sir Jojo said seriously. "My master can't be bothered to come to a place so far away. She doesn't even have time to take care of her child. Besides, the owner of this arcane realm should have been unable to leave this arcane realm from the beginning, just like the little monkey. How could my master have been imprisoned for so many years? It's impossible. Right, child?" The little one's expression froze, and her eyes shone brightly. What was the name of her master's son again? Why did he have such a bad memory? Or did Little Tree say that her memory was still sealed? "Jojo." Emolian reached out and held her little paw. "It's okay if you can't remember. You'll remember more and more slowly." Arbor nodded and hurriedly pulled him to the passage on the right. "Let's go." Following the passage on the right, there was really no obstacle, and they came to the 9 small stone rooms that Mata had mentioned. Jojo, I entered the 5th stone room just now, and there was a stone inside. After I picked it up, I was ejected." Sir Jojo paced back and forth in front of the 9 small stone rooms, and suddenly noticed a line of small words clearly engraved on the door of the first stone room. "The correct way to enter the next stage. Please choose door number 5. Everyone almost burst out laughing as they asked, "Himata, you didn't open the 5th door after seeing this line of words, did you? This IQ, how could it be so straightforward to clear a mystic realm? Who knew how many generations have been scammed by the 5th gate?" Sir Jojo was laughing in his heart, but he did not show it on his face. He hurriedly flipped through the omnipotent treasure book that his master had left behind, searching back and forth on the few pages of notes about treasure hunting in secret realms. Here. She was a little excited. She ran up with the handwritten letter and looked at the bird text beside the door. She pointed at a door and said, "Here. That's it, door number 5. Emolian, Duanyu, and the other 2, including the little monk, all came over to watch curiously. Sure enough, the bird characters left on the first door matched the row of numbers in the little fellow's master's handbook. The little guy said excitedly, "Look, my master is really a god. Her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 can actually correspond to more than a dozen different bird characters." Everyone nodded in unison. The bird characters engraved on this door were one of the dozen ways her master had marked out the numbers, and one of them Jojo, Morong-sun, left this behind? Duanyu asked in bewilderment. Chapter 3175. They didn't expect His Excellency Morong to be so erudite and multi-talented. Emolien shook her head and explained to Duan Yu. Jojo also has 2 mighty masters and ant masters, who can tear open the void of the star domain and track us here from thousands of miles away. Jojo has an impression of them, but the memory fragments are a bit fragmented, so he can't really explain what happened. Inside Paradise Planet, Mata had already fainted from crying and was rolling back and forth, pounding his chest and stamping his feet. Jojo, you cheated! Jojo, you cheated! Mata, the 5th door you picked was actually door number 2. Sir Jojo told Mata with schadenfreude, after matching the characters marked on the door. You have to learn more about culture, Sir Jojo said earnestly. Otherwise he would really be an idiot if he couldn't even figure out what door number was Mata. Roll, roll, roll. I really can't live on being despised by Sir Jojo like this. Arbor led everyone through the first door, only to see that the small stone room was completely empty. Everyone was startled at first, but then they walked inside. They walked out of the small stone room's back door without any obstructions, and a lush little garden appeared before their eyes. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. What was going on? Weren't they going to get the treasure? They didn't even see the treasure, but they ended up passing through an empty stone room? Arbor blinked and comforted the men. It's fine, let's continue forward. The treasure shouldn't be far from us. Emolien's mouth twitched, and she suddenly had the urge to laugh. I wonder if those 2 students from the Hong Academy guessed the right room. Duan Yu curled his lips. Just now, Huang Sheng and Old Pa had followed behind them. As soon as they entered the main hall, they very consciously cupped their hands in farewell and took their leave. After all, the 2 of them had already basked in Arbor's limelight, so they were too embarrassed to continue following behind other people's teams to pick up scraps. After all, their friendship hadn't reached that level yet. There's an arched bridge up ahead. Arbor led them towards the arched bridge. As soon as they reached the center of the bridge, they saw a small flag with a piece of cloth tied to it waving in front of them. The words on the cloth read, "Please enter the 9th archway. You only have 1 chance." A group of people stood in the middle of the bridge and stuck their heads out to look under the bridge. Sure enough, they saw 9 neat rows of small arched holes under the bridge. They were man-made, and each arched hole could only allow 1 person to enter by bending down. Only those who were petite and petite could enter. Arbor and Emolien jumped under the arch bridge. Now that they were familiar with the path, they found the crooked character that corresponded to the number 9. Xiaomu ran inside eagerly and took out a small purple gold lacquer box. I found this. The little monkey didn't stray too far from them. Instead, it followed them all the way. At this moment, he was already dumbfounded what was going on. These people were so lucky to have come all the way here. Their luck was too scary. How many people under these layers of choices had their hair pulled out and looked haggard? But what about them? It was too easy. They ran all the way to the 9-arch bridge. It was over, it was over, it was over, it was over. The little monkey was so anxious that he stomped his feet and frantically hopped up a tree. He scratched his ears and cheeks but couldn't think of a way to stop them. Sir Jojo turned to look at the little monkey's hiding spot. He then opened the box to reveal a small golden key. Please use the golden key to open the door named Justice among the 5 doors in the passage ahead. So it was said that those who were cultured could travel the world without fear. Chapter 3176. If they hadn't freaking seen Jojo's master's personal letter, who would have known that these messy characters were actually called Justice? They stood in front of the passage, next to the 5 golden doors. No matter how they tried to match them, they couldn't connect this string of crooked and strange characters with the word justice. They silently exchanged glances. They had to admit that they were probably not cultured enough. Lady Jojo expressionlessly set down her master's personal letter. I think the only explanation is that the previous owner of this mystic realm and my master should be from the same era, so their characters can be used together. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal immediately nodded in agreement. I think my Jojo's words make a lot of sense. That should be the case. Duan Yu and Emolien silently glanced at him and simultaneously mocked in their minds. I think your moral integrity is worrisome. Aren't you just Jojo who's always right and clearly follows Jojo? The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at them suspiciously. He kept feeling that these two fellows' gazes were a bit strange. Lady Jojo stepped forward and forcefully kicked open that golden door with a flying kick. Everyone instantly felt that it was a bit shocking the instant Lady Jojo kicked open the door. She even very cautiously dodged to the side, and then activated a defensive barrier. After waiting for a moment, her large, round eyes swiveled before she expressionlessly removed the defensive barrier. She said dryly, "Oh, there's no mechanism." "Ha!" The little monk had just started laughing when he was startled by the little monkey, who abruptly flashed to his side. "Wow, little benefactress, why didn't you make a sound when you walked? You gave this humble monk a fright." The little monkey glanced at him, before striding to Arbor. "Who exactly are you?" She had stayed in this mystic realm for who knew how many centuries, but she had never seen someone as strange as this sister. She could actually clear all the stages without any obstacles? Was she still far from the destination? The little monkey solemnly sized up Arbor. "Could it be that you recognize the characters that sister wrote?" Jojo stretched out his hand to the little monkey. "Come." The little monkey hesitated for a moment, but in the end, it couldn't hold back its curiosity and raised its little hand. Arbor picked her up and looked into her eyes. She raised her small head slightly and fixated her bright eyes on Xiao Mu just like that. If this little girl's face wasn't covered with a layer of monkey fur, she would be a pretty little fellow. Arbor simply carried her to the side and sat down. "Little monkey, how long have you lived here?" Little monkey shook his head. "I can't remember." In any case, for as long as she could remember, she had already stayed in this secret realm with her sister, and depended on each other for survival. She had heard her sister mention that she was picked up by her sister. When her elder sister brought her back, she was covered in cuts and bruises. Not a single piece of her flesh was intact. She was already on the verge of death. She thought for a moment. "About 200 or 300 years ago. Little monkey, you want to kill everyone who came to this mystic realm in batches, don't you?" Arbor and the others already knew that the main spirit of this sun-moon mystic realm was filled with murderous intent towards them and wanted to exterminate them. The little monkey's face instantly darkened. Because they all deserved to die. In the past, sister and the ancestor of that temple had some friendship. Chapter 3177. So, I did him a favor and made an exception to allow his descendants to enter the mystic realm every 10 years to find their own opportunity. But those people are too greedy, Little Monkey said with dissatisfaction. They are getting worse with each generation, using evil thoughts time and time again. Especially in the past 30 years, those bad guys from the temple have been greedy every time they entered the mystic realm, becoming more and more abominable. This time, those people from the temple used some kind of secret technique, and actually let a group of people barge into the transportation talisman array for no reason. They sent more people in, definitely for the treasures left behind by my sister. Little Monkey sneered and said, "They all deserve to die here. For their own greed and obsession. This mystic realm couldn't hold on for much longer. Once every 10 years, these people would plunder the treasures inside. As time passed, the spirit treasures and spirit energy would gradually thin. If this continued, it wouldn't be able to support the operation of this mystic realm. And she wanted to stay here and continue to wait for her sister. Her sister would come back. Little Monkey firmly believed this. So she couldn't let these damned people destroy the entire mystic realm. Little Monkey wanted to protect the sun-moon mystic realm, protect her sister. These bad guys, no matter how many of them came, she had to let them all die here. Have you ever thought that perhaps your sister won't be able to come back anymore?" Xiao Mu understood the little monkey's thoughts after thinking it over carefully. She said it so softly, and it seemed to have agitated Little Monkey. She jumped up from Arbor's lap and shook her head repeatedly. "Impossible. Sister will definitely come back. She will definitely come back." Although she didn't know why her sister suddenly disappeared in this mystic realm, Little Monkey firmly believed that her sister wouldn't leave her alone. Arbor raised her hand and patted her head. "Many times, we will encounter some irreversible factors. Maybe it's not that she doesn't want to come back, but that she can't come back at all? Just like her master and martial uncle, They were targeted by the heavenly Tao and refused to come back. Wasn't this an irreversible force? Little Monkey's head drooped down, and she said pitifully, "Little sister, then do you have a way to find my sister?" Arbor was put in a difficult position. She didn't even know what Little Monkey's sister looked like. Where was she going to find her? Little Monkey was a smart child. He immediately understood and said, "Little sister, hurry up and pass the level. After you pass, you'll be able to see what my sister looks like." Emolien, Duanyu, and the others looked at each other, feeling that it was a bit shocking. This 100-year-old little monster kept calling them Miss Jojo. "Did you know that your Miss Jojo was only 16 this year?" As she spoke, her expression suddenly changed, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. "Those flies are here again." Arbor was taken aback. He immediately thought that it might be Xian and the others. She hurriedly said, "Don't be in a hurry to kill them. Many of them are my friends. Where have you taken them all?" Little Monkey pursed his lips. "I left them wandering around the maze." "Little sister, do you want to go and see them? I can take you there." "If you take me there, then wouldn't I have wasted my effort in passing the level?" Little Monkey pursed her lips again. "Don't worry, I won't go back on my word." Chapter 3178. Sir Jojo nodded his head in satisfaction. "All right then, let's go take a look at them." As the master of the Sun-Moon Mystic Realm, Little Monkey naturally had a thorough grasp of the space-time of the Mystic Realm. She didn't seem to use much strength, but Arbor and the others only felt the space in front of them shift slightly. When they landed again, they were stepping on soft grass. Arbor saw Xian and the others at a glance. They were running back and forth in the neatly trimmed forest in front of them, scratching their ears and cheeks. The trees in the forest were all short shrubs. The entire green forest maze wasn't big, but there were countless winding paths inside, making one's head dizzy. When Xiaomu looked over, she could see a lot of people circling inside. The trees were only as tall as a person's waist, and they could easily see the right path if they raised their eyes. However, no one could see it. It was as if they were bewitched as they randomly hacked at the trees. What was even stranger was that the forest seemed to be immune to all kinds of spiritual energy. No matter how many punches and kicks these people made, the trees in the forest didn't move at all. Little Monkey said proudly, "They've all fallen into an illusion. Right now they still think that they're in a large forest with ancient trees." Arbor looked at her and patted her head. She pointed in the direction of Xian and the others. "Let them out." Little Monkey snorted. "If we let them out, the others will definitely follow." Arbor looked carefully and saw that there were many unfamiliar faces. After pondering for a few seconds, she nodded and said, "Let them out. Don't worry. They won't be able to take anything from this mystic realm. Not only that, I can also give you some spirit stones and black spirit jades, so that this mystic realm can continue to be maintained for a while." Little Monkey heard this, and her eyes lit up. She reached out and shook Arbor's clothes. "Little big sister, you're really a good person." It was the first time Arbor had heard someone call him a good person, and his expression immediately became a little strange. She was used to hearing other people call her little stoic, little pervert, and little evildoer. So when she suddenly heard someone call her great person, she instantly felt a bit awkward in her heart. Prince Emo suppressed his urge to laugh and said with a serious expression, "Jojo, we don't have much time left. We have to hurry up and rescue Xian and the others. We still have to continue clearing the level." After he finished speaking, he gave his wife a meaningful glance. "Wife, I found the treasure you wanted long ago. We still have to rush back to the capital." Sir Jojo nodded in understanding. He turned to the little monkey and said, "Hurry up, let's not dawdle." The little monkey stretched out his hand and gently clenched his fist. However, the green thicket in front of him seemed to have come alive. Piece by piece, it quickly moved to the sides and arranged itself. Suddenly, a small path that could accommodate two people walking side by side appeared in the middle of the house. Miss Chi was originally fighting with an enormous ancient vine tree monster. Her small face was flushed red, and she felt that she was about to be unable to take it anymore. Just as she was about to summon her summoned beast to help, She suddenly discovered that the tree monster in front of her seemed to have been struck by a tornado and disappeared in an instant. She couldn't help but turn around with a dumbfounded expression. It was as if she had seen a long-lost relative. Her eyes reddened as she looked at the small crimson figure at the end of the small path. Chapter 3179. Jojo! Qi Xuanxuan's shout attracted the attention of the others. At the same time, Queen Fu Sha and her people from the Dafeng tribe, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing Xiaoyi, and Aoyi were all there. In addition, Madame Guan and the two from the Panga clan also walked out. Other than these people, there were many faces that Arbor was unfamiliar with. They were probably some of the people who were forcibly sent into the teleportation array. Jojo, Little Fatty, and the others hurried over as well. They really looked like brothers who had not seen each other for hundreds of years. They quickly surrounded Sir Jojo in a circle. One by one they began to complain. Xiao Xiao, where did you run off to? Oh my God! You don't know how unlucky we were. In the blink of an eye, you and Prince Emo disappeared. How can we endure this? Ever since we separated, I haven't had a good day for half a minute. If we weren't being chased and killed, we would be locked in a forest of vines and trees, fighting with a bunch of monster vines. It's so tiring. Sir Jojo listened to their complaints with an expressionless face. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but look him up and down. She exclaimed, Jojo, you've recovered. How have you been recently? Lord Jojo said in an infuriating manner. The journey was very smooth. Everyone. Although Jojo's face was expressionless, there must be a lot of drama going on in his mind. Everyone thought. At this moment, although Sir Jojo didn't smile, he must be laughing at them for being so unlucky. Queen Fu Sha of the Dafeng tribe led her 7 subordinates to Arbor. She smiled and clasped her hands. Thank you for saving me. It was just a matter of convenience, Sir Jojo said calmly. Queen Fu Sha suddenly felt like she couldn't continue chatting with the little crown princess. She didn't understand what was going on. Are you done chatting? Little Monkey snapped. Now, I'm going to teleport them out of the hall. Wait. Arbor threw out a storage talisman that glowed with purple light. Little Monkey was so angry that he stomped his feet. You're doing it again. I didn't say anything when you cheated and sucked a person into your talisman. Now you actually, to think that it would become even worse. Ah! Sir Jojo kept Situ Yi, Qi Xianxian, and the others into his storage talisman. Then he turned around and smiled at Little Monkey. It's done. Okay, your sister. Little Monkey really wanted to ridicule the young lady in front of him. Sure enough, he was someone who would take a mile after being given an inch. We're on the same team, so of course we have to stick together. We were separated because of an accident. Jojo blinked and said, now that we have a chance to be together, of course we can't be separated. Little Monkey was stunned. Then, he drooped his little head and nodded listlessly. You're right. When I'm alone it's really boring. Arbor walked up and patted his hand on her head. Aren't you with us now? Look, we have so many people to accompany you. You can even find the little monk to play with and chat with. Little Monkey's little face immediately darkened. He curled his lips and said unhappily, I hate talking to long-winded monks the most. Chapter 3180. The little monk quickly said, this young monk is only talkative, not long-winded. Benefactress, don't misspeak. Duan, you couldn't resist chuckling. He walked up and scooped up the little monk. All right, let's go. Should they go back and continue clearing the trial after being delayed here for so long? Perhaps it was due to their blind confidence in Sir Jojo, but they felt that there would definitely be a huge surprise waiting for Sir Jojo at the end of this trial halt. Very abruptly, a stern rebuke came from behind them. Arbor and the others turned a deaf ear to it, so they naturally wouldn't obediently stand still like this. But soon, they felt a sword aura whistling towards the back of one of them. The speed wasn't bad, but this kind of speed was still too slow for them. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal chuckled, and turned around to flick his finger. After a crisp clang, the spirit sword in the attacker's hand was broken into 3 pieces, and fell to the ground with clinks and clangs. That person looked at them, with an extremely unsightly expression. His dark eyes were filled with disbelief. Don't be afraid, everyone. Attack together. After completing the mission, everyone will be rewarded. Someone shouted, and suddenly, everyone started moving. They weren't only targeting the little Stoic and Prince Mo's group. They didn't want to let Queen Fu Sha, the Jing sisters from the Panga clan, and even Madame Guan off. To be more precise, these people who forced their way into the array were indeed aiming to kill them. From their tone, they seemed to have accepted a mercenary mission. Arbor narrowed his eyes. This was a good business. He wondered how much their lives were worth. This group of people seemed to be on steroids, as they brandished their weapons and charged straight at them. Just as they were about to close in, Arbor shouted in a low voice, "Little monkey, why aren't you expelling these idiots?" The little monkey's face was red from holding back his anger. After a long time, he finally whispered in exasperation, "You think I don't want to? I tried. These people use some kind of secret technique to force their way into your transportation talisman array and sneak in. Not only that, he even has a jade talisman that is specially designed to restrain me. This jade talisman was secretly developed by the master of the deity hall to counter me." The little monkey drooped its head dejectedly. "This jade talisman has a trace of my sister's aura. I can't do it." Arbor nodded. "Okay. Let's fight then." There were so many of them. Did they think that there was no one here? In a fit of anger, the little fellow released Situ E and the others from the storage talisman. "Senior brother Situ, were these people the ones who chased after you all the way?" "It's them." Situ E and the others nodded repeatedly. "It's not just the 20 or so people in front of us." Arbor nodded. "Let's go. We'll catch a few of them alive and ask them about the situation." With that said, the group of people didn't hold back and directly rushed forward. Each of them used their spiritual power, and after summoning their weapons from their consciousness, they entered a chaotic battle. These people should be mercenaries who have accepted the mission. "Don't be polite with them," Arbor said coldly. At this time, the mercenaries couldn't help but be a little surprised. They originally thought that Situ E and the others had already been expelled from the hall, so they dared to come here so impudently, wanting to deal with Arbor first. Chapter 3181. In any case, the mission this time was based on headcount. The more headcount they obtained, the more generous the commission they could receive. Unexpectedly, Situ E and the others didn't disappear. Previously, when Sir Jojo used the storage talisman to cheat, not many people detected it. Now, when she let him out of the storage talisman again, there was a flash of light. The field was filled with Situ E, Little Fatty, and about 20 people at the same time. Little Fatty rubbed his palms and chuckled, abruptly summoning his divine beast, the dazzling iron-shelled tortoise. He weighed the double-headed hammer in his hand, and abruptly took the lead to charge into the group of mercenaries. Afterward, Duanmu Qing's wood spirit swiftly crept up and strengthened a defensive barrier outside Little Fatty's earth shield. In terms of team battle experience, no one was more experienced than the Seacombe Planet battle team. When this group of people had nothing to do, they would study all kinds of cooperative battle tactics. Therefore, they could coordinate and execute more than a dozen battle tactics in just a few minutes. They were terribly sullen just now. A group of bastards played tricks in the forest, causing them to be flustered at first. They had to deal with the giant tree vine monster in the illusory array, and they had to deal with this group of small rats, so they were infuriated beyond words. Now that they had the chance, they naturally had to get back at them completely. The mercenaries started to run out of luck. They didn't expect the other party's counterattack to be so fierce. Their team was scattered in no time. They weren't even a mercenary group to begin with. How could they have any teamwork ability when a group of more than a dozen mercenary groups gathered together to form a group of stragglers? Now that they were suddenly scattered, those mercenaries panicked a little, and a few of them immediately wanted to slip away when they saw that the situation wasn't right. Doya narrowed her eyes, and a surge of water spirit instantly smashed onto one of the mercenaries. She quickly pounced over, and with a vigorous body, she used her knee to push against that person's chest. Without saying a word, she pulled out a sharp blade tied to her calf, and cut that person's throat with a cold look in her eyes. This set of movements was done in one go without any fanciful movements. Arbor nodded inwardly, full of admiration for senior apprentice Sister Doya in his heart. This chaotic battle simply didn't take long before it was declared over. Arbor pulled the hair of one of them, making the ordinary-looking man raise his head. "Did the temple give you a mission to kill?" Arbor asked coldly. The man stiffened his neck and didn't reply. "Who's your leader?" Arbor's eyes turned cold as he continued to ask. That person was in pain and refused to say anything at first. Arbor couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him and directly used a dictum talisman on him, making him confess everything. This time, the temple had gathered close to 1,000 level 8 and above spiritual masters and wanted to force their way into the array to secretly deal with them. It was said that the leader was a level 12 great spiritual master called Cheong Hao, who had some tricks up his sleeve. When Arbor heard this person's name, she felt a little familiar, but she couldn't remember if she had interacted with this person before. When Arbor asked the man about the undead puppet, the man seemed to be at a loss. Obviously, he was unaware of this matter. As a result, Xiao Mu's expression instantly darkened. Therefore, the temple didn't just send this group of mercenaries to kill them. He also made 2 backup plans. If the mercenaries weren't useful, he planned to use this special army of undead puppets to harm them. Chapter 3182. It was a beautiful dream, but unfortunately, the reality wasn't so perfect. Arbor kicked the delirious mercenary away, then turned to look coldly in Jing Minyao's direction. "Do you want to die again?" Jing Minyao only felt the anger in her body dissipating. She almost couldn't control her emotions. Arbor looked at her coldly. This woman had been secretly observing her since the beginning. Her gaze was like that of a venomous snake, making Jing Minyao somewhat unhappy. She didn't have the energy to deal with her now, but that didn't mean that this woman could continue to provoke her. She was still thinking about the Jing family's soul congregation bell. Arbor looked at her with a flicker in her eyes. If she took the soul congregation bell from the Jing family, she might be able to use a secret technique to directly nurture eldest senior sister into a godly realm expert. Eldest senior sister Su Shanshan's talent was much higher than Jing Minyao's. It was just that the spirit energy in the lower star domain was scarce back then. So the people in the lower star domain cultivated slowly. If they cultivated in the same environment, with eldest senior sister's talent, her cultivation wouldn't be inferior to Princess Jing's. Thinking of this, the little fellow's eyes faintly lit up. She turned to look at Princess Jing. Princess Jing had been very cautious about Emolian and Arbor all this time. These two had left a deep impression on her. If it wasn't necessary, with her cautious personality, she didn't want to continue interacting with these two. Now that Arbor's meaningful gaze swept over her, she would be lying if she said her heart didn't thump. "Princess Jing." Sir Jojo suddenly spoke. Jing Linyao's heart skipped a beat. She nodded at Arbor fearfully. "What orders does the Crown Princess have for me? I see that your arm is injured. I have a good blood-staunching powder here. Do you need it?" Jing Linyao's heart instantly went off. Her expression was tense, and her smile was very stiff. No need. Would this stoic face be so kind-hearted? Usually, when they met, she would not even look at the two sisters in the eye. But today she was suddenly so amiable. It was as if she had completely changed her temperament, causing them to be on guard against her. Jojo pursed his lips and turned his head away with a bored expression. He ran to Prince Mo's side and held his hand. "We're leaving. Little Monkey, I won't take my companions in for the time being." Jojo said to Little Monkey, "Look, they just helped you kill those evil guys. You can keep them with me." The little monkey pouted. "But the rules of our Sun-Moon mystery realm." Jojo suddenly took out a bun. "Hey, I have a delicious meat bun here." The little monkey smelled the fragrance and almost drooled. It hurriedly ran over and stretched out its little hand. "Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me." Everyone was speechless. They didn't expect a bun to be able to subdue the little main spirit of the Sun-Moon mystery realm. Arbor smiled and held her little hand. He handed the bun to her. "Let's go." In a flash, Jing Minyao only saw the figures in front of her disappear. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. Arbor's group was nowhere to be seen. Jing Minyao was instantly angered. Chapter 3183. Big Sister, what do you think is going on? Jing Minyao stomped her feet in surprise. You heard it just now. That monkey-like monster seems to be the space spirit of the Sun-Moon secret realm. Princess Jing was much smarter than Jing Minyao. How could she not know what Jing Minyao was able to see through? But because she was a smart person, even if she knew something, she would only keep it in her heart. Unlike Jing Minyao, she wouldn't say it out loud. They are going to the deepest part of the hall. Jing Minyao stomped her feet anxiously. Didn't you hear what they said? That little bitch let the monkey-like space spirit take her there. So what if they go? Jing Linyao looked at her sister with a smile that wasn't a smile, her eyes full of ridicule. Can you stop them? Can you stop them? In such a big place. Not to mention they didn't know where to stop them. Even if they did, how could they stop Arbor's group? This sister of hers, she always couldn't see where she stood. She would suffer in the future. Seeing her sister's sloppy attitude, Jing Minyao couldn't help but stomp her feet in anger. They must be going to get the Sun-Moon twin wheels. Big sister, why aren't you worried? Don't you know what the Sun-Moon twin wheels are? It's a weapon formed from the essence of the sun and moon. Naturally, it's much more powerful than man-made weapons. It's the only divine weapon in the world, big sister. We can't just give up like this. The reason why she was willing to follow the temple to this secret realm was mostly because of this unparalleled divine weapon. If she could get her hands on such a sharp weapon, let alone a mere arbor, she would be able to do anything. A dark light flashed in Jing Minyao's eyes. Even if a dozen arbor came, they wouldn't be a match for her. At that time, she would definitely be able to wash away her shame. She must let this Qiao Mu also taste the terror of death. Then she would torture her bit by bit, letting her experience humiliation and terror before she died. Thinking of this, a trace of smugness appeared in Jing Minyao's eyes, as if Arbor had been tortured by her like this. Jing Linyao could clearly see the emotions in her stupid sister's eyes. Seeing this, he couldn't help but sneer. I advise you not to do anything stupid again. You've been repaired by the soul gathering bell once. Jing Linyao said coldly. There's no second chance. Jing Minyao's fingers retracted. Her thin fingernails subconsciously shrank into her palm, piercing her heart with a slight pain. She hated it the most when her elder sister spoke to her in such a tone. It was as if she was just a useless member of the family. In fact, her cultivation had already far surpassed her elder sister's innate talent. Jing Linyao, a great spiritual master, dared to challenge her, a level 3 divine master. She really didn't know who gave her the courage. Jing Linyao looked at her expression and shook her head slightly. She was about to say something when she suddenly felt her body become light and uncontrollably bounced out of the secret realm. After landing on the ground, he took a closer look. At this time, the curtain of night had already completely darkened. At this moment, she was standing outside the palace's gate. An almost inaudible sound came to her ears. Jing Linyao almost reflexively dodged to the left and jumped up with one hand on the ground. Chapter 3184. The sword in her hand slid across the other party's throat without hesitation. A faint sound came from the darkness, and Jing Linyao's heart tightened. Just now, she heard the other party's voice, and it didn't sound like a living person. Moreover, she could also feel that when the tip of the sword slid past the other party, it didn't feel like it was slipping through the flesh of a living person. What kind of monster was hiding in the dark? Jing Linyao's eyes flashed with a trace of forcibly suppressed calmness. Suddenly, she turned her hand and shone the special night pearl in her hand, and suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Jing Minyao also couldn't help but scream at that moment. Heavens! The hall was actually blocked by a group of rotten corpse puppets, and there were several corpse puppets nearby with their backs to them, fighting to tear something apart. Jing Minyao looked around in a panic, and immediately recognized the person being torn apart. It seemed to be one of the mercenaries who had chased them before. She screamed again uncontrollably. Jing Linyao fiercely glared at her several times, scolding her countless times in her heart. Idiot! She thought that there wasn't enough trouble here, so she had to scream like a ghost to attract the attention of the corpse puppets. How did such a stupid brain grow to this size? Sure enough, after hearing Jing Mingyao scream, the corpse puppets, which were originally quite quiet, raised their grayish-white eyes mixed with red blood vessels, and looked at the two sisters without blinking. Jing Mingyao was almost scared out of her wits. She hurriedly shot a fire spirit, but it didn't land on the corpse puppets. Instead, it fell on the ground, provoking the corpse puppets to roar. The corpse puppets roared angrily and rushed in their direction. Jing Linyao gritted her teeth and waved her hand to throw a ball of fire. She didn't care about that stupid sister anymore and rushed in the direction where there were fewer corpse puppets. Arbor and the others returned to the golden door that was kicked open by Sir Jojo. Let's go. Sir Jojo was moved. He felt that he would be able to see the little monkey's sister soon. She was now really curious about the little monkey's sister. She had created such a huge sun-moon mystery realm all by herself. And she had stayed in this mystery realm with the little monkey for who knew how many years. How could she not feel lonely and uncomfortable? In this godforsaken place, there were only two people relying on each other for survival. If this continued, wouldn't they go crazy? Oh no. According to the elder sister, before she found the little monkey, she had probably spent a very long time alone in the secret realm. Thinking of this, Jojo felt an inexplicable sense of sadness in his heart. He actually felt a trace of sympathy for this sister that he had never met before. She didn't know why, but she actually thought so in her heart. The group of people followed Jojo through the passage without any obstructions. They looked at each other. The little fatty beat his chest and stamped his feet as he asked, You guys? All of you? Is this how you've been doing all this time? Fuck. Why did he encounter spatial spirit beasts and mutated plants along the way? Why was he fighting all the way here? Wasn't the battle in full swing? Sob, sob, sob. The heavenly Tao is so unfair. How could there be such a huge difference between people? Sir Jojo said expressionlessly. I already said that it was a smooth journey. Do you think I'm lying? Ask Mata if you don't believe me. Mata's handsome face didn't have any extra expression. Chapter 3185. On the way here, Sir Jojo had already dealt him a crushing blow. If possible, he didn't want to acknowledge anyone or speak to him right now. You'll understand if you watch quietly, Mata said enigmatically. The little fatty rolled his eyes at him in exasperation. Why was this guy still pretending to be mature? Did he think that he would completely believe him if he said that? Hua Tao whispered to Lu Yu. Jojo's dog's hit luck is simply heaven-defying. Jojo even chose the correct fifth door? Qi Xinxian asked in bewilderment. Many people had been conflicted about the fifth door for a long time. She just wanted to know how Jojo managed to make his choice in one go. It seemed like there were several places that needed to be chosen along the way, and the questions and answers all appeared strange. Could it be Qi Xuanxuan's eyes brightened? That half of the map I bought previously worked. Mata. As everyone conversed, they successfully arrived at a courtyard that was filled with the fragrance of flowers. This small courtyard was filled with rare medicinal herbs. They were divided into different categories and cultivated in small plots. The medicinal herbs were growing very well. Even if it had been a long time since someone had taken care of it, it still looked like it was thriving. Arbor liked this simple and elegant small courtyard at a glance, and he had a rough idea of what was going on. This was probably that sister's living quarters. There was a small stone mill in the center of this small courtyard, and a sword was stabbed into it. It was a dusty sword whose material couldn't be discerned at all. It looked like a plaything that was retrieved from a garbage dump. It suddenly appeared in front of everyone just like that. Duan Yu and Mo Lian exchanged glances before saying, It seems like we have to pull out this sword before we go over. Lady Jojo blinked her eyes, but before she could say anything, she heard the little fatty volunteer. I'll do it. Everyone silently averted their gazes. Little fatty moved his chubby little legs and ran over as if he was flying. He placed his hand on top of the grindstone and gripped the hilt of the sword. Suddenly, he seemed to be having an epileptic seizure. He held the worn-out sword and danced around. Then he fell to the ground with a bang. Even his hair was emitting bursts of green smoke. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. Holy shit! A divine sword with a lightning attribute. Mata jumped up excitedly. Xianxian go. Xianxian swallowed her saliva and shifted her gaze to the man with the afro. She swallowed her saliva again, as she had a feeling that she was going to be cheated. Go Xianxian. Everyone encouraged her. Don't worry. Go pick it up. Of course you're not worried. I'm the one who's going to get electrocuted. Xianxian rolled her eyes in annoyance and walked forward with small steps. Her small hand slowly touched the worn-out sword. Xianxian was completely focused. At this moment, her nerves were already stretched taut as she activated her Thunder Soul defense. Thank goodness. She breathed a sigh of relief. This lightning attribute sword was Xianxian only felt her body swaying, and she almost couldn't stand steadily. Her eyes bulged slightly as she inwardly cried, "Oh my God!" Thick smoke floated out of her mouth when she opened it. Her eyes rolled back, and she fell to the ground face up like the little fatty. Everyone covered their eyes as they couldn't bear to watch. Chapter 3186. Xianxian looks so pitiful. The little stoic glanced sympathetically at our dear Xianxian, whose eyes were rolling back and forth on the ground, and walked over to her. Uffed. Mata couldn't hold back her laughter. After a spurt of laughter, she saw everyone's accusing gazes, so she hastily restrained her smile and sternly said, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, I think it's more appropriate for you to go up." The spectators all nodded in agreement. She was trying to trap the Crown Prince. Duan Yu inwardly curled his lips in amusement. At this time, Aoyi jumped out with a swoosh and said with a look as if he was facing death calmly, "Your Highness, let this subordinate go down." Everyone, what can you change if you come? It's just one more person lying on the ground. At this time, the little stoic had already helped Xianxian up from the ground. She reached out to pat away the dust on Xuanxuan's body and took out a small handkerchief to wipe Xuanxuan's tan face. She said sympathetically, "Use more beautifying cream these 2 days. Don't scrimp, come get more from me when you're done." Our dear Xianxian blinked, and her clear eyes were practically brimming with tears. She didn't even need to look in the mirror to know what she looked like. Look at her head of beautiful hair. It was all curled up like noodles. Woo-woo. As they spoke, Aoyi had already rushed up to express his loyalty in front of Prince Mo. Arbor truly couldn't bear to see another person lying on the ground, so he coughed and said, "Aoyi, come back." Sir Jojo skipped forward. "Let Jojo do it." Liang Qingqing pursed her lips and did her best to suppress her belly full of laughter. She coughed lightly and said, "Little junior sister, you can go up, but for safety's sake, you should cough. Activate a defensive barrier." "Don't worry." The little stoic expressionlessly took out a dozen talismans and slapped them all over her body. 5 multi-defense talismans, several lightning and shock protection talismans. In the end, she took out 8 diamond talismans and slapped them all over her body. She instantly felt comforted. Sir Jojo looked at him expressionlessly. "I forgot." Everyone was speechless. Arbor took small steps and arrived in front of the stone mill. His 5 fingers moved slightly, and with the thought of "Come on, Jojo. Sama is not afraid of you," he used some strength to grab the hilt of the sword that was stuck in the stone mill. The little girl used all her strength to pull herself out, and then staggered back a dozen steps. Prince Mo's eyes were sharp, and his hands were quick enough to catch her. Only then did she regain her balance. His little face was filled with confusion. The little fellow lowered his head and looked at the dusty broken sword in his hand. He raised his head and looked at Emolien. Prince Mo's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He coughed lightly and said, "Jojo, you pulled it out." The jaws of his bad friends, who were watching a good show, instantly dropped. The little monkey's expression was even more exaggerated, and he actually fell to the ground with a clang. Where did this monster come from? For several hundred years, it wasn't like there hadn't been almighty people with heaven-defying luck who relied on guessing along the way, like a blind cat running into a dead mouse. But no matter who it was, they would be ejected at the stage of pulling out the sword, because no one had ever pulled out the thunderclap sword before. Chapter 3187. Little Monkey opened her mouth wide in an exaggerated manner, unable to close it for a long time. It was magical. She silently shut her small mouth. Afterwards, she stood up and strode to Xiao Mu's side. She tilted her head as she examined Xiao Mu from head to toe. Afterwards, she declared with certainty, "Little sister, you definitely have a very impressive sacred weapon on you. A sacred weapon that formed on its own at the beginning of the world. This divine artifact that was formed by heaven and earth on its own, and had been polished for perhaps thousands of years, was incomparable to those man-made ones. This divine artifact had the most supreme power in heaven and earth entwined around it. Once it appeared, all divine artifacts would submit, just like the sun-moon wheels. Even though it had been submerged for many years, its artifact's spirit suppression still existed in this mystic realm, causing all living beings to not dare to act recklessly. Lady Jojo subconsciously blinked her eyes and raised her small hand to look at it. Sometimes, she could indeed feel the unusual flow of power in this bloodline. That was her Fushi greatsword. It existed, but she couldn't take it out for the time being. Her little hand touched it and gently patted Little Monkey's head. Arbor nodded and said, "You mean, the reason why this broken sword was tamed so obediently is because of the divine artifact created by heaven and earth in my body?" Little Monkey's eyes lit up slightly, and she felt closer to Arbor in her heart. This little sister was indeed a person of great fortune. She already had a universal saint tool in her body. Therefore, she was definitely not like the others who came here solely for the sun and moon wheels. She was indeed a little big sister, who was completely different from others. It had to be said that the little monkey was very naive. He had inexplicably misunderstood in order to express the greatest goodwill to Lord Arbor. Little Monkey reluctantly gave up her treasure and said, "Little big sister, take this Thundercrash sword. It's not a broken sword. Its power is second only to the sun-moon wheels. The sword has the power of lightning attached to it, and it also has an artifact spirit space." Arbor looked down at the broken sword with a reluctant expression. "It's so ugly. Little Monkey, this little big sister was indeed a weirdo. She actually thought a divine artifact was ugly. Was this the logic of a normal person? Since when did humans become so strange?" The little fatty jumped up and exhaled a puff of green smoke. "Jojo, you can contract with it. If even a spirit artifact requires a contract, then this saint artifact must also." Arbor's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and stroked the sword. Although the sword looked tattered, it was very sharp. The blood on her finger was sucked into the sword in an instant. Then, the tattered sword that was covered in dust released a strange light. The rusty stains on the body of the sword peeled off inch by inch, revealing a treasured sword that was flickering with purple light. The 3-foot-long sword was incomparably sharp. With a flick of his finger, the sword immediately let out a buzzing sound that lasted for a long time. Xiao Mu felt a bit more joy toward it in her heart. She raised her hand to stroke this treasured sword and joyfully thought in her heart, it wasn't freaking a bitter journey of 1,000 miles in vain. He had obtained a peerless sword on this trip. Then he thought about the sword techniques recorded in the Spirit Division record. He quickly found a sword technique that could complement this Thundercrash sword and unleash great power. Chapter 3188. Arbor withdrew Thunderclap into her conscious and reflexively checked the situation in her conscious. Her current liquefied conscious had already expanded. It was originally a jade ribbon-like stream, but now, it had grown to the size of a river. Her liquefied spiritual conscious swayed as it flowed in the small river. It appeared very peaceful and tranquil. Above the river, the golden talisman jade tome and the Spirit Division record quietly hung. The Tianji treasure blueprint, ferrule, club, cauldron, startled swan dagger, boat, and other items also slowly flowed around the 12 jade slips in a miniature form. Apart from this, there were 2 more items in her conscious. They were the heavenly horsetail feather and the mechanism map that she had swindled from Chen Qi and Lu Jing not long ago. At this time, Thunderclap also flew over and proudly circled around the golden talisman jade tome. Then, it ran over to stir up trouble and lightly bumped the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron in Arbor's conscious with its tail. The 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron was unperturbed and ignored this fellow. Lady Jojo was afraid that it would stir up trouble and give her a headache, so she used her divine sense to stop it. After seeing that it quietly hung beside the golden talisman jade tome and didn't cause any more trouble, she withdrew her divine sense from her conscious with satisfaction. Little monkey. Lady Jojo turned to look at her and said, "What other treasures do you have? Look, I still have so many companions." Little monkey suddenly showed an angry expression and then roared, "Except for the few of them. The others have been eliminated long ago." She was naturally referring to Qi Xianxian and the others who had been eliminated except for Emolian, Duan Yu, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. If it weren't for this little sister, they would have been kicked out of the hall long ago. How could they continue to stay here and watch? Humph. Lady Jojo blinked and was about to have a good chat with this petty little monkey when the door to that room suddenly opened on its own. Arbor's group simultaneously turned their gazes to the room. A faint figure floated out from inside. Her long hair hung loosely to her knees, and she wore a dark purple close-fitting robe with narrow sleeves. A faint smile appropriately hung on her ethereal and beautiful face. This girl was too beautiful. Lady Qiao Qiao glanced at her, and her eyes lit up. Jojo swore that she had never seen a girl more beautiful than the girl in front of her. She suddenly waved at her, and Qiao Qiao ran over to the girl's side. Emolian quickly called out, "Jojo." Arbor turned her head and waved her little hand at him, indicating that she was not controlled by the girl's powerful spirit. She was very conscious and wanted to get close to the girl. Sir Jojo could sense the strength of this girl's soul. The ancient aura that seemed to have existed between heaven and earth for thousands of years seemed to have flowed out from an ancient scroll of history. It was quiet and elegant, and it constantly touched people's hearts. This girl had an inexplicable powerful aura that made people want to get close to her. She looked at Jojo with a smile, and Jojo looked back at her expressionlessly. It was as if a beautiful painting had been frozen in time. In this small green courtyard, everyone's eyes were on the two of them at this moment. Although it was the first time they met, some people's auras were very compatible even when they first met. For example, the two people in front of them gave off a feeling that they were rather harmonious. Chapter 3189. I'm Mo. What about you? Although her smile was faint, it made people feel a great attraction force. Jojo. Sir Jojo blinked his black almond eyes. Your little monkey's older sister. As he spoke, Sir Jojo thought about why little monkey was silent. He hurriedly turned to look at her. He saw the child standing dazedly beside Emolian with red eyes. Her small shoulders drooped. She looked like she wanted to come over, but didn't dare to. Emo raised her hand and waved at little monkey. The little monkey burst into tears and ran forward, jumping into Mo's arms. Unfortunately, Emo was only an illusion. In a split second, the little monkey passed through the illusory figure. Then, it turned its head and stared blankly at Emo Tienga. It called out sadly, "Big sister. I'm sorry." Mo's voice was weak. "Little monkey, I don't want you to see me like this." This was why she didn't want to show herself to little monkey, even though half of her divine sense existed here. Moreover, this half of her divine sense had been here for 200 to 300 years. In the end, it was about to run out of soul power and dissipate. "Older sister, when are you coming back?" "Little monkey, I can't come back," Emo said softly. "Liar. You said you'd always be with me." The little monkey's eyes turned red and red. Suddenly he burst into tears. "You liar." She waited for her for 200 to 300 years. She guarded her obsession alone and watched over this secret realm for a long time. She wanted to wait for her to come back. But now, she was telling her that this obsession she couldn't guard it anymore. Emma wanted to pat little monkey's head, but her hand passed through little monkey's withered hair. She looked at little monkey and said softly, "Older sister doesn't have much time left. Can you let me finish?" She turned to look at Arbor. A faint smile appeared on her face. "Jojo, I sense a familiar aura from you." She floated a few steps closer to Lord Jojo and said in a faint voice, "That's the aura of the void. I was once exiled to the void for 3,000 years, This mystic realm has always been drifting in the void. It drifts to wherever it goes. She looked indifferently into the distance, as if she was looking at an unknown space-time. She reached out and patted Arbor's head. You too. Sir Jojo's heart seemed to have been touched. He stood there in a daze, staring at her blankly. Suddenly, a scene like this appeared in front of her eyes. An expressionless little girl was floating in the boundless void. What does the void look like? It was darker and purer than the night. Because no matter how dark the night was, there would always be stars and moonlight. But the void didn't. There was nothing in the void. It was as if Jojo was the only person left in the world at that time. Jojo walked slowly in the void. She couldn't see the road ahead and didn't know where to go. There was no living thing in the void. She didn't know if she should stop, but she firmly believed that if she stopped she would die. No matter if she floated or walked, she always felt that she was moving. She was the only living thing in the void. Chapter 3190. Jojo didn't know how many years she had been drifting in the void. Until one day, she suddenly saw 3 lightning flashes chasing after a piece of withered wood and continuously striking it. She used all her strength to fight against these 3 lightning flashes for a while and exhausted herself, but she still managed to protect half of the withered wood. Although this was only half a piece of withered wood that was on the brink of death, the little girl felt like she was hugging a ray of light when she hugged it. Although she was still drifting aimlessly in this void, she still believed that this half piece of withered wood had vitality. She didn't know how much time had passed that day. The half piece of withered wood suddenly spoke. My name is Chochio Jojo. Jojo. Emol Yen, Duanyu, and the others were anxious. When they saw her standing there in a daze, as if she was bewitched, they hastily ran up and shook her small body repeatedly. Arbor returned to her senses, and her eyes unwittingly swelled. She understood the feeling of drifting in the void all too well. No wonder Emo said there was a familiar void aura on her body. That was the same aura between the two of them. Emo said she had drifted in the void for 3,000 years. If that was the case, then perhaps Jojo would be drifting for even longer. Jojo already didn't remember. And she didn't want to remember these things. Those lonely and destroyed years in the void had already passed forever. Arbor glanced at the group of little friends that had gathered around her, and suddenly smiled faintly. I'm fine. Emo smiled at her and looked at the people around her. Chow, help me take little monkey out of here. I can give you this entire mystic realm. Except for the sun-moon wheels. Emo paused, as if to explain to Jojo. The sun-moon wheels are my natal weapons, and have been with me for a very, very long time. They won't obey anyone other than me, so I sealed them in the center of the mystic realm, to maintain the operation of this entire mystic realm. Go and remove the seal. The sun and moon wheels will follow my aura. Once the sun and moon wheels leave, the entire mystic realm will collapse. Before that happens, you just have to take the mystic realm away. In other words, this senior called Emo wanted to give the entire sun-moon mystery realm to their Charles as a gift. When the onlookers heard this shocking news, they only silently digested it for half a second, before collectively calming down. There was nothing that their Chow could not encounter. Little monkey, you can leave. Little monkey shook his head, and looked at his sister with teary eyes. Big sister has already left this place for another space-time. She will never be able to return. She looked sadly at the crying little monkey. I didn't fulfill my promise. I'm sorry. Little monkey, when I was in the sect, I wasted a lot of time chasing after a boundless dream. Whatever I've learned, I've only scratched the surface. There's no way I can undo the mysterious suppressive drug in your body. In the future, please ask this little sister to treat you properly. Jojo. Emo looked up at Arbor and smiled. I'm going to disappear now. Can you help me take care of little monkey? She's very obedient, so you don't have to worry about her. Arbor nodded. Emo smiled faintly and nodded. Jojo, you're much luckier than me. Although I suffered a lot in the void. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.